In a dark room decorated with skulls and pink, flamed candles, a desperate young man begs his senior sister to let him go. This entire bizarre scene takes place on the Xiaowu continent, more specifically within the St. Yuan demon sect. But the red-haired girl does not even listen to his pleas, refusing categorically and keeping him trapped on the bed. With a teasing smile, the woman mockingly says that today is their big wedding day and calls him her husband. In a mocking tone, she asks how he could have the nerve to leave his concubine all alone in such an empty room. The young man's name is Zhao Mu, and he reveals that, as absurd as it sounds, he is actually a reincarnated person who came from another world. He explains that the crazy woman beside him likes to roleplay different characters to satisfy bizarre desires, and she is definitely not his wife. 1 year ago, Zhao Mu transmigrated into the body of a young noble on this continent, even possessing a marriage contract with a royal princess. However, right when it seemed like he was going to live a perfect life, he ended up getting captured by cultivators from the St. Yuan demon sect. He never imagined that becoming a prisoner was just the beginning, as the true nightmare was yet to come. The reason is that Zhao Mu possesses the pure Yang constitution, the perfect ingredient to boost the cultivation of the Nine Yin mystical art used in the sect. Since no one cares about the life of a servant disciple, our protagonist became nothing more than a human tool for female cultivators to increase their strength. And even with all his young vigor, Zhao Mu was being continuously drained while the senior sister kept teasing him. Because of this, his body could not handle the extreme pressure, and he finally reached his limit, coughing up a large amount of blood. Seeing his life slip away, the young man desperately thinks that he does not want to perish in that place under any circumstances. Clutching his own neck and fighting through the pain, he tries to focus all his willpower to react. The senior sister, however, shows not the slightest bit of mercy and warns him with a cruel smile that he should feel honored to fall by her hands. To extract every last drop of power, she grabs a Yang consolidation pill to force the full activation of the boy's constitution. She explains that her technique is about to advance to the next level and demands that he hand over all his remaining Yang energy without holding back. Leaving no voice, the woman shoves the pill directly down our protagonist's throat, forcing him to swallow it. As she mocks him, saying his downfall will be worth it if she achieves her breakthrough, Zhao Mu screams in his thoughts, asking to be freed. Seeing his life gradually drained by that shrew, Zhao Mu refuses to accept that his end will be passing away exhausted before even exploring the world. With extreme determination, the young man clenches his fist so hard that he makes his own hand bleed, swearing he will never give up. At this critical moment, his unyielding desire to survive activates a system, which appears in his mind asking to be bound. After a long year of suffering, the system finally manifests, explaining that any donation made by Zhao Mu can yield a return of up to 10,000 times the reward. Realizing this is the perfect chance to turn the tables, he completes the binding and even receives a compensation that guarantees a 10,000-fold return on his first donation. Unaware of what is happening in his mind, the senior sister continues to tease him, saying the young man's body reacts despite his refusal. Attitude, untying his chains and promising with a confident smile that he will satisfy the senior sister immediately. In a sudden twist, our protagonist takes control of the situation and grabs the girl, surprising the woman who did not expect this reaction. Far from disliking it, the senior sister goes wild with pleasure at the aggressive behavior and asks him not to go easy. Knowing that the system will transform this delivery of Yang energy to his own benefit, Zhao Mu moves forward without hesitation. With a look full of determination, the young man swears to himself that he will now take full control of his own destiny. Surrendered to the protagonist's intensity, the woman gives herself up completely throughout that entire night. Night finally passes, and dawn brings a new day over the pavilions of the demon sect. The next day, Zhao Mu wakes up stretched out on the bed, completely exhausted and looking almost lifeless. Feeling refreshed, and comments that although he donated little Yang energy, his performance the previous night was very good. Before flying out through the window, she laments the spent pills and says she will return to look for more fun if he manages to survive. As soon as the warden leaves, the protagonist gives a subtle smile, knowing his plan worked perfectly. The system kicks in, multiplying what was absorbed by 10,000 times, granting him the Crimson Yang sacred body and instantly raising his cultivation to the 10th level of Qi refining. Feeling an overwhelming force flow through his veins, the young man is impressed to witness the true power of a sacred body. However, he quickly regains self-control and realizes it is not yet time to draw attention or show off. After all, the St. Yuan demon sect is full of powerful masters, and if his secret is discovered, his fate will be worse than just being a cultivation furnace. Dressing in his disciple robes, Zhao Mu decides to take advantage of the lack of attention from others to accumulate as much strength as possible in the shortest time. As he walks through the sect, he reflects that spirit stones are essential for cultivation and wonders if he should take private jobs from other senior sisters. But he soon dismisses the idea, remembering that he now has a powerful system and that most of these disciples pay very little for each service. Stopping halfway, our hero begins to ponder if there is a faster and more lucrative alternative to obtain these stones. Suddenly, his attention is drawn to someone meditating a short distance away. It is Wang Chan, an outer disciple of the Heiwan sect who is focused on his cultivation. Remembering that Wang Chan helped him when he joined the sect, Zhao Mu decides this is the ideal moment to return that kindness. He plans to hand over to his colleague the 200 spirit stones he accumulated over the past year, knowing the system will multiply this donation and make him extremely rich. Wang Chan is caught by surprise on the shoulder by a small pouch falling from the sky while he was meditating. Upon opening the bag, the cultivator is surprised to realize that the contents are full of spirit stones. Radiant with joy, he imagines that his daily effort moved some grand master of the sect to gift him in order to encourage his training. Meanwhile, spying from afar, Zhao Mu sees the system notification confirming a 500-fold return for the 200 spirit stones donated. In the blink of an eye, 100,000 spirit stones rain down around our protagonist, leaving him impressed with the ease of getting rich. He ponders that 100,000 stones is still little and swears that in the future he will make everyone who humiliated him pay multiplied by millions. Curious, Zhao Mu wonders if giving away stones received from the system itself would activate a new reward multiplier. To test his theory, he throws more stones over Wang Chan, making the poor guy shout without understanding anything while jewels rain down on his head. Looking at the ground filled with treasures, Wang Chan kneels emotionally, believing he has found a divine benefactor. While Wang Chan promises to dedicate himself twice as much, Zhao Mu stares at the system screen, which remains completely still. Realizing the system generated nothing new, the young man concludes that it is not possible to use this kind of loophole to trick the rules. At that instant, a female voice calls him by surprise from behind the trees, making him turn around immediately. It is an imposing cultivator armed with a sword, who is surprised to see that he is still alive. The young man bows respectfully and greets her formally as senior sister Lu. This is Lu Qi, an outer to sect who also practices the Nine Yin mystical art. Zhao Mu remembers that Lu Qi used to take care of him at the beginning, but distanced herself after being threatened by Chu Jiaran, the red-haired girl. Observing his aura, the senior sister comments on the young man's progress, but Zhao Mu answers with modesty, saying it was just luck. No bdation first of all talk. Lu Qi abruptly grabs his wrist, catching our protagonist off guard. She reveals that Chu Jiaran went into seclusion for a few days and decides to drag Zhao Mu along to help her with her own cultivation. Summoning a giant blade, the senior sister bluntly orders the boy to get onto the flying sword with her. The sword takes off at high speed, making Zhao Mu cling to Lu Qi's waist and leaving her visibly embarrassed. During the flight, the cultivator questions how his aura changed so much, suspecting that he gained advantages from Chu Jiaran. Lu Qi warns him that demons are not to be trusted and that remaining with the red-haired woman will end up draining his life completely. She then states that as soon as she advances to the core formation realm, she will challenge her rival to claim ownership of him for herself. Zhao Mu accepts the proposal by getting even closer to her, while internally feeling indignant about being treated like a contested trophy. The flight ends upon arriving at the inner area of the St. Yuan Demon sect, where high-level accommodations are located. Entering the residence, Lu Qi promises to give him a vitality pill as a gift if he successfully helps her reach the new realm. She instructs Zhao Mu to make himself comfortable in the place while she goes to the private room to take a bath before the process. Our protagonist smiles to himself, celebrating the perfect opportunity to donate energy and receive more rewards from the system. Lu Qi removes her attire and steps into the heated wooden tub to prepare herself. As the water with petals wraps around her body, the cultivator tries to focus her mind for the big moment. Relieved at not being interrupted this time, she thinks hopefully about the advance of her cultivation, but she's surprised by Zhao Mu appearing right behind the tub wearing light attire, giving the senior sister a scare. Without giving any room for hesitation, the young man gets into the tub with her, shamelessly stating that washing together saves time. Hugging the girl from behind, the young man suggests starting the training immediately, leaving the cultivator completely shy. During the process, Zhao Mu praises her mystical technique while Lu Qi is impressed by the intensity of the young energy she receives. When they finish, Lu Qi is out of breath while the young man comments with surprise on the senior sister's unexpected innocence. Embarrassed, she tells him to shut his mouth about the matter, and Zhao Mu merely agrees, laughing in a playful tone. In a more serious and melancholy tone, Lu Qi reveals that she has an arranged marriage for next month. When she chose the name of her fiancé, Long Tiangsang, the young man is visibly shocked by the revelation. He's a supreme prodigy who reached the nascent soul realm before turning 30, considered a 1,000-year genius in the sect. Knowing that this man comprehended sword intent on his own and is famous throughout the realm, Zhao Mu begins to worry. The young man panics upon realizing the gigantic danger of angering such a powerful figure after being with his fiancé. To calm him down, Lu Qi reveals a bizarre secret: her fiancé damaged his meridians while practicing an ancient technique and became an eunuch. She approaches affectionately, confessing that she only surrendered something so valuable because she truly likes Zhao Mu. Touched by the lady's sincere declaration, the protagonist's gaze changes completely. Without hesitating any longer, Zhao Mu pulls her into a passionate kiss, intensifying the moment between them. Seeing that she is close to achieving her breakthrough, the young man insists on continuing the training until the end of the night. Day breaks, bringing a peaceful atmosphere around the residence courtyard. Lying on the bed, Lu Qi rests peacefully while her body emanates a glowing aura, signaling the absolute success of her breakthrough. Early in the morning, Zhao Mu celebrates upon seeing the system screen manifest, indicating that the donated yang energy generated an 800-fold return. With this multiplication, the intensity of his crimson yang sacred body increases drastically, causing an overwhelming force to circulate through his body. Right after, the system notifies him that he has just broken through the barrier and successfully reached the foundation establishment stage. Satisfied with his lightning progress, the young man realizes that at this rate of evolution, he will soon not need to fear even Long Tianxiang and his family. Looking at the sleeping senior sister beside him, a new idea begins to form in our protagonist's mind. He gently wakes the girl up and asks where the vitality pill she had promised as a reward is. Barely able to keep her eyes open from fatigue, Lu Qiu hands over a small green vial and warns him that she needs to sleep a bit more. To his surprise, inside the container there is not just 1 but 10 second-grade vitality pills, showing the senior sister's generosity. Looking at that vial, a sly smile forms on Zhao Mu's face as he plans his next move. Since he needs to donate items to activate the system, the young man reasons that it makes no sense to look for someone else when the perfect target is lying right there. Without wasting time, he delicately places one of the vitality pills into the girl's mouth while she sleeps. Immediately the sister responds, confirming the donation of the grade 2 pill and generating a 30-fold return in the form of a grade 3 pill. Despite the result, our hero finds the 30-fold multiplication a bit low for what he expected. Remembering that 9 pills still remain, he decides to keep trying in hopes of obtaining a return of at least 1,000 times. The lady murmurs sleepily, not quite understanding, as she swallows the pills Zhao Mu continues to give her. The persistence pays off, and the system finally triggers a massive reward, multiplying the value by 3,000 times. The excess medicine makes Lu Kui's body warm up and emanate an intense golden aura during her sleep. As a reward for this 3,000-fold return, a valuable 7th-grade marrow cleansing pill appears in Zhao Mu's hands. Impressed by the extremely rare, high-level item, the young man recognizes that he hit the jackpot this time. This pill not only strengthens the foundation, but its true value lies in purifying and drastically elevating the aptitude of a cultivator's bones and meridians. Zhao Mu knows that although his pure yang constitution is good among mortals, it still falls far behind the monstrous geniuses of the sect. Therefore, to go further on the path of cultivation, he decides to swallow the pill immediately to break his talent limits. As soon as he swallows it, an overwhelming medicinal energy explodes inside his body, covering him in brilliant flames. Without wasting time, the young man sits in a lotus position on the floor to refine all that concentrated power. For hours, the force of the marrow cleansing pill purifies his bones and removes all impurities from his system. Upon finishing the purification, the expelled dirt makes the young man exude a strong odor, causing Lu Qiu to wake up and tell him to wash up right away. He walks to the bathroom and uses his yang energy to prepare the water and clean himself. After the bath, the transformation is clear, his skin and physique look rejuvenated, and his presence has become even more striking. Lu Qiu appears at the door surprised to realize that he has reached the foundation establishment stage, thinking it was the effect of the pills. Touching his chest, the girl suspects that foundation establishment alone does not expel so many impurities and asks if he ate something else. Knowing that revealing the 7th-grade pill would be impossible to explain, our protagonist needs to invent a convincing excuse. To change the subject, he presses her against the wall and blames their dual training, noting that she has not yet advanced to the new realm. In a provocative tone, the boy says it must be his fault for not trying hard enough and offers to help her once more for free. Even with the senior sister calling him crazy for taking such risks, Zhao Mu insists on the process to guarantee her breakthrough. After another intense round of dual cultivation, the lady is left completely drained and dazed on the bed. Saying goodbye while getting dressed, Zhao Mu leaves the place satisfied while the system registers another return and strengthens his yang energy. Moving with extreme lightness along the sect's staircases, he is mesmerized by the agility provided by the new realm. The young man gets excited thinking that as soon as he gets a flying sword, he will be able to fly freely through the skies to explore the world. To obtain his new equipment, Zhao Mu heads to the commercial market maintained by the sect's disciples. In one of the shops, he pays a generous amount to the merchant to acquire a special sword box. The chosen weapon is the Starguard Slayer, forged with meteoric iron and engraved with an array that absorbs astral power to increase its damage. Even though it costs 30,000 spirit stones, Zhao Mu buys it without hesitation, planning to donate the sword to activate the system multiplier. Suddenly, an aggressive voice interrupts him in the middle of the street, calling our protagonist a heartthrob in a threatening tone. Turning around, Zhao Mu recognizes Niu Ti, a muscular giant with bullhorns staring at him with fury. Niu Ti is an outer disciple in love with Chu Jieran who had already tried to cause trouble before, but had been stopped by the red-haired girl herself. Possessing the bull demon lineage at the foundation establishment stage, he is the ideal opponent for Zhao Mu to test his new powers. Grabbing the protagonist by the collar, the brute furiously demands to know if it is true that he was with senior sister Chu again. Not shaken at all, Zhao Mu answers mockingly and wraps the big guy's hand with his burning yang energy. Blended by rage at the young man's audacity, the demon channels all his blood power into his right fist. He delivers a devastating punch with deadly intent, determined to crush our hero once and for all. At the last millisecond, Zhao Mu blocks the devastating strike with just one hand, stopping the demon's charge without moving an inch. Smiling with disdain, the young man mockingly says he prefers to stay alive to have fun with Chu Jiren, leaving Nu Tai in shock upon seeing that he too reached Foundation establishment. Furious, the monster roars that a newcomer who recently arrived at the new realm could never compare to him in real combat. He unleashes a frantic sequence of brutal punches, trying to massacre our protagonist with all his physical strength. However, Zhao Mu dodges all the strikes with ease, mocking the brute's lack of speed. Our hero notes how overpowered the Crimson Yang sacred body is, allowing him to dominate one of the top 100 outer disciples without the slightest effort. Deciding to end the farce, Zhao Mu dodges once more and delivers a quick counterattack. Concentrating the flames of the Crimson Yang in his fist, he steps forward for the final strike. The flaming punch hits the demon squarely in the face, sending the giant flying away bloody. Nu Tu alone hopshes to the ground, leaving his henchman totally terrified by the protagonist's unbelievable strength. One of the henchmen tries to intimidate Zhao Mu by citing the power of Nu T's family in the sect, but the boy just smiles, saying he was reminded of something important. He opens the box and sends the newly purchased flying sword directly toward the henchman. The blade embeds itself in the wall millimeters from the guy's face, almost scaring the poor fellow to death. To everyone's surprise, Zhao Mu announces that he is donating that 30,000 stone sword to pay for the brute's medical expenses. The strategy works again. The system registers the donation of the sword and triggers a 1,000-fold return. Zhao Mu receives and exchanges the 5th grade Heavenly Star Hunter flying sword, finding the result reasonable. As the protagonist calmly walks away, the two henchmen tremble with fear, lacking the courage to react. But the moment he turns his back, the cowards attempt a treacherous attack, falling upon him with weapons in hand. Sensing the ambush, Zhao Mu's gaze turns dark and cold as he warns that he will have no mercy on fools. Before they could touch him, a gleaming blade cuts through the air in a perfect arc. The two attackers are thrown to the ground injured and shout indignantly, wanting to know who interfered in the fight. A woman in a light dress and voluptuous curves emerges furious, scolding the henchmen for their cowardice. This is Mu Jiling, a spectacular cultivator who witnessed the surprise attack attempt. Shrinking her giant sword, the girl walks up to Zhao Mu and stares at him up close. She scolds the young man for his lack of caution, giving him a lecture for dropping his guard in front of enemies. She reminds her of the Daiset teaching of never leaving enemies alive around to avoid future problems. The henchmen try to stand up to her, asking who she thinks she is and threatening her with their boss's name. With an intimidating look and red eyes, she reveals her name with total authority. Upon hearing the name Mu Jiling, the pair turns pale with terror, recognizing who they are dealing with. Knowing that she is a senior sister from the inner sect, the cowards flee at full speed, abandoning their own boss. Next, the girl turns to Zhao Mu and points her finger at his chest, demanding explanations. She gets so close that she presses herself against the boy's chest without the slightest shame. Blushing, she reminds him to use her name to protect himself in case anyone tries to pick a fight with him. In a chill tone, she complains that if he passed away, there would be no one left to marry her in the future. Zhao Mu recalls that since he joined the sect, this girl always pursued him, but not because of his yang vigor. She was simply in love with our protagonist's beauty from day one. Although she is feared by everyone as a ruthless warrior of the demon sect, no one would imagine that she keeps such a cute and affectionate side when she is near him. The young man reassures the girl, saying he does not perish easily, but she insists that her future husband cannot be in danger. Excited, Mu Jiling pulls him by the hand and guides him through the sect market. In an impressive leap, she takes off, carrying the boy through the skies without needing any flying sword. Our protagonist is amazed to realize that flying without a sword is an ability exclusive to those who have reached the core formation realm. He begins to wonder how far this girl's true strength level goes. The pair land softly in an isolated and luxurious region of the mountains. Sensing the dense spiritual energy of the place, the young man is impressed to note that he is in the heart of the sect's sacred land. Mu Jiling opens the door to her house and invites him inside, making Zhao Mu suspect that she's a personal disciple of the elders. Looking at the house full of books and scrolls, the boy asks if she lives there, and the lady explains that she uses the place to relax and read. Without any ceremony, the girl throws herself open-armed onto the soft bed. Looking back with a charming smile, she asks why he remains standing or invites him to lie down by her side. A bit embarrassed by the situation, our hero warns her not to tease him, as his willpower has limits. All embarrassed, the girl complains that he is a true rogue and asks what his head is full of. Without losing time, our protagonist simply approaches and places a pair of manuals into her hands. These are two valuable techniques: the true chapter of sword control and the One Chi mystical heart sword art. Curious, he asks how she knew he wanted to practice sword control, and the young woman answers proudly that it was easy to guess, since he recently reached the Foundation establishment realm and rushed to buy a flying sword. Next, she pulls out a box and hands it to him, revealing a 4th-grade flying sword with a cold attribute known as Frost Leaf. She explains that the sword is perfect for suppressing the pure yang energy that surges within him, preventing him from thinking about nonsense all day, which makes our hero find her quite thoughtful. The girl then instructs our protagonist to stay there practicing sword control for a few days, assuring him that she will take care of other matters for him. She also reminds him that because he reached foundation establishment, he no longer needs to be a servant disciple, promising to arrange the update of his file to outer disciple. Intrigued by so much kindness, our main character looks at her and wonders who this girl really is. Before walking out the door, she gives a provocative smile and answers flat out that she is the person he is going to marry sooner or later. Our hero just gives an awkward laugh, thinking to himself how much that girl knows how to flirt. Putting those thoughts aside, he decides to focus on what is most important at the moment and begins to study the cultivation manuals. He sits in a meditation position and begins to concentrate his energy to master the art of swords. However, after much effort, he ends up completely exhausted and pale, frustrated for finding the technique so difficult even after using the marrow cleansing pill. Analyzing the situation, he realizes that the pill only improved his physical body's aptitude, but did nothing to increase his capacity for comprehension. Our main character falls into despair upon noting that having an overpowered system is useless if his intelligence is too poor to advance in cultivation. At that moment, the room's small spiritual beast approaches curiously, and the protagonist suddenly gets a great idea. He remembers that if even donating yang energy activated the system, teaching and sharing knowledge should also trigger the return reward. With a somewhat mischievous smile, he looks at the little creature and decides he is going to end its boredom in a very different way. Our protagonist grabs a board and begins teaching the multiplication table to the poor creature, which gets completely dizzy without understanding a thing. And to his delight, the system beeps right away for teaching the monster. He activates a 100-fold return, drastically increasing his comprehension. A giant wave of enlightenment wraps around our main character's body, instantly expanding his mind. He opens his eyes with a sharp look, feeling all knowledge flow with extreme ease. With just a wave of his hand, the flying sword floats perfectly, and he celebrates upon realizing that he now understands complex techniques immediately. Still, he assesses that this level of gain is not yet enough for a reincarnated person to truly stand out in this world. When the swollen ascot tries to slip away quietly, the protagonist notices the movement and already prepares the next lesson. He grabs the creature and warns it, with a far from friendly face, that now he is going to teach it geometry theorems. Shortly after, there he is teaching even advanced calculus on the board, which triggers another 100-fold return from the system and elevates his cognitive capacity to absurd levels. Except that right after comes the system warning his comprehension has reached the maximum limit allowed for his current cultivation realm. Even surprised that a limit exists, our hero confidently approaches the shelves, sure that he can now learn any technique from there without issues. He tests the first one and executes the Vajra Fist art with impressive ease. Right after, he casts the Red Thunder and Wind art, shooting a lightning bolt directly into the ground and scaring the poor creature. Afterwards, he masters even the 3 talents and 6 fates divination art, manifesting magical circles around himself. After testing several, he tosses the manuals aside upon noting that they are all basic yellow rank techniques, far too simple for his current level. But then our main character has a brilliant realization. Since he memorized everything, he can write down these techniques and donate them to other disciples to rake in a mountain of rewards from the system. While he ponders the future, the small beast approaches holding a carved bone tube in its mouth, catching his attention. The protagonist pets the creature's head and asks if it is trying to hand over that bone as a gift. Grateful for the gesture, our hero takes the object and even jokes, saying that later he will make soup with it. But upon touching the bone, a mysterious purple energy emerges and reveals the name of a secret art, the Swarming Chaos art. Surprised, our main character never imagined that weird mascot was actually carrying such a profound technique. The system detects the knowledge and tries to force the automatic learning of the technique, which makes the protagonist's head explode in excruciating pain. The reaction is so violent that our hero falls to his knees coughing up blood, leaving the small creature in total terror. Wiping his noff, he realizes in shock that even with his comprehension at the limit of the foundation establishment realm, he cannot assimilate this art. Looking at the bone on the floor, he immediately concludes that it can only be an earth rank or even a legendary heaven rank technique. At that moment, Mu-Jiling opens the bedroom door and is completely horrified to see our hero fallen and weakened. Feeling guilty, she rushes to him, imagining his condition was caused by the difficult technique she gave him earlier. Embarrassed to explain the truth, he lets her think so while she sets a meal box on the table and insists that he eat first. Very affectionate, the young woman picks up the food with chopsticks and asks him to open his mouth so she can feed him. While accepting the food with a satisfied smile, our main character thinks quickly about the opportunity of having the girl right there at that moment. Taking advantage of the perfect situation, he grabs the mysterious bone glowing in a purple aura and hands it to her, asking her to take a look and see if it might be useful. Surprised by the gift, Mu-Jiling holds the glowing bone and asks where he got that art, to which our main character explains that he got it from a small beast, but since the secret was too profound for him to assimilate, he decided to pass it to her. And his plan works perfectly. The system notifies that he gifted the Earth rank Swarming Chaos art and activates a 60-fold return, granting him the valuable high Earth rank Pure Yang Swarming art. The golden scroll of the new technique instantly materializes before our hero, emanating an impressive power. The system confirms that the new art is 100% compatible with his Crimson Yang sacred body and asks if he wishes to perform immediate assimilation, which he accepts without hesitation. However, since he does not know how long this transmission process will take, he needs to find a way to send Mu Jiling away so she does not suspect his secret. But before he can say anything, an overwhelming pressure invades the place and destroys everything, making the girl scream angrily that the foul dog almost ended her future husband for stealing the technique again. She vents in relief upon seeing that he did not force the cultivation, explaining that the Schwamming art possesses chaos attributes that clash directly with his constitution. The young woman warns that if he had insisted on cultivating that, the incompatibility would make his body's meridians explode, causing immediate demise. Upon hearing the explanation, our main character finally understands why he coughed up blood earlier. The problem was never a lack of comprehension, but rather his own body's rejection. She explains affectionately that techniques compatible with his constitution are rare, and that she will need time to gather appropriate materials, advising him to focus on the basics for now. Intrigued by so much dedication, our protagonist asks what she is really planning by taking such care of him, and the young woman answers with a seductive look that her intentions are more than obvious. With a provocative smile, she openly asks him to simply surrender to her charms once and for all. The girl assures him that if he accepts being her cultivation partner, he will have everything within the demon sect and no one will dare touch a single hair on his head. However, before he can give an answer, a terribly powerful explosion cuts through the skies accompanied by a furious voice shouting that it was an absurdity. A colossal pillar of purple energy descends directly onto the residence, destroying the roof in the blink of an eye. The spiritual pressure is so devastating that it throws our hero to the ground instantly, leaving Mu Jiling completely terrified. Looking up, our main character spots a figure floating in the air wrapped in purple flames and wonders, horrified, who possesses such a terrifying aura. The young woman immediately bows in respect and asks the reason for her master's visit, leaving our protagonist in shock upon discovering the woman's identity. The woman responds in a chilling and severe tone, showing not the slightest mercy. Reviewing her imposing presence, the saint of the sect mockingly asks if her arrival ruined the couple's moment. Terrified by her superior's fury, the girl lowers her head that instant and answers that she would never dare think such a thing. The master declares that Juling is her most valuable disciple, and that she always planned to train her to inherit the position of saint of the demon sect. However, she expresses deep disappointment at seeing the girl setting cultivation aside to hide a servant disciple in her house and engage in romance. Hearing the scolding, our main character puts the pieces together and realizes that the current saint is Juling's master, which explains why the girl had so much standing in the sect. Desperate, Mu Jiling drops to her knees begging for her master's forgiveness and admitting her mistake. The woman then manifests a sharp sword in her hands and says that since the disciple recognized the failure, she will give a single chance at redemption. She plunges the sword into the ground and brutally orders the girl to destroy the servant disciple with her own hands to cut all emotional ties, before going into seclusion for 30 years. The young woman throws herself at her master's feet crying and begs for mercy, assuring that all of this has nothing to do with the young man. She cries desperately and states that if she ends the young man, her Tao heart will be destroyed forever, and she will never be able to advance in cultivation again. The master looks at her with an even colder gaze and asks if the disciple dares to threaten her. Showing no compassion, a monstrous wave of energy descends upon the two, crushing them violently against the ground. Seeing the scene, our hero feels indignant upon noting that this woman is willing to severely harm her own disciple for disobedience. Injured and bleeding from her mouth, the girl looks shocked when she feels our protagonist intervene to try and help her. He holds her firmly and, releasing all his spiritual power, tells her to absorb his energy immediately to recover. Upon witnessing the overwhelming aura emanating from the boy, the master is dumbfounded to realize that he does not have an ordinary Yang body, but rather the legendary Crimson Yang sacred body. Maintaining a firm stance, our main character mockingly praises the sect saint's sharp vision. The warden analyzes the situation in silence, internally recognizing that the Crimson Yang sacred body is extremely rare and that the boy chosen by her disciple really has absurd potential. Already recovered by the energy received, the girl hugs our hero and blurted out without a filter that if she had known this before, she would have tied him to the bed to enjoy him by force. The master clears her throat immediately out of embarrassment, making the girl apologize in a hurry while our main character laughs awkwardly trying to hide his embarrassment. Softening her posture, the master decides to let it pass and warns that, solely out of consideration for Juling, she will spare his life for now. Next, she wraps the disciple in her aura and orders our hero to return to the outer sect to focus on his cultivation. Before disappearing into the sky taking the girl away, she makes it clear that he should not seek Juling again until he reaches the nascent soul realm. Left alone at the location, our hero takes a deep breath, realizing that the saint is powerful enough to end him with a simple thought. Determined and seized by urgency, he calls for more strength, knowing he needs to get exponentially stronger to take control of his own destiny. He then returns to the outer sect area, where life continues normally in the busy streets. Arriving at his residence, our main character locks the door to have complete privacy and focus on his evolution. Assessing the gains, he considers that despite the gigantic danger, the visit was worth it, as it guaranteed a high Earth-rank technique and a 4th-grade flying sword. Without wasting time, our protagonist settles in and triggers the system to initiate the immediate transmission of the new art's knowledge. An overwhelming golden flame wraps around his body as the secrets of the technique are engraved directly into his mind and soul. Impressed by the absurd speed of evolution, our main character realizes the gigantic power that emerges from combining the pure yang swamming art with his crimson yang sacred body. Suddenly, the system notifies him that the surrounding spiritual energy is insufficient to sustain his advancement, asking if he wishes to absorb resources automatically to continue cultivation. Without hesitating, our protagonist confirms the option on the system screen that very instant. That same second, the huge pile of spirit stones he had previously accumulated appears around him. All those stones begin to dissolve rapidly, releasing an absurd amount of pure energy into the air. Our main character absorbs all that energetic flow directly into his body, feeling his strength expand in strides. The entire night passes while the glowing illumination continues emanating from his residence during this intense process. At dawn, our hero concludes the cultivation and opens his eyes, feeling the result of a whole night of progress. Looking around, he is stunned to realize that he consumed all 70,000 spirit stones he had saved in a single night. Despite the financial loss, he celebrates upon noting that he managed to advance straight to the 3rd layer of the Foundation establishment realm at once. Stretching as he leaves the room, our protagonist decides that his next main objective needs to be finding a fast way to get more money. However, as soon as he sets foot outside, he is immediately cornered by 3 mean-looking guys. The gang's leader, a servant disciple of the 8th Chu refining layer named Hu Qiang, mockingly says he heard about the various benefits that senior sister gave him. With an unfriendly face, the bully demands that our hero share a bit of that wealth with them as a show of respect. Our main character analyzes the situation and remembers that this Hu Qiang usually takes advantage of his strength to act as a tyrant in the servant quarters, having even beaten a newcomer to end his life recently. Instead of being afraid, our protagonist points at the thug and mockingly remarks that, for robbing everyone daily, he must certainly have a huge amount of accumulated spirit stones. Furious at the provocation, the bully steps forward throwing a punch intended to pulverize the boy. But to the attacker's surprise, our hero dodges the strike with extreme ease and mocks the slowness of the attack. Without wasting time, our main character delivers a devastating counterstrike directly to the brute's face, sending him to the ground covered in blood. The other 2 cronies and panic to help the leader, horrified by the ease with which he was brought down. Coughing up blood and with his face all bruised, the bully can barely believe the boy's brutal strength. Seeing the flaming aura around our hero, they realize in shock that he has already reached the Foundation establishment realm, which our hero confirms with pure mockery. Desperate, the boss orders the other 2 henchmen to stop staring and attack our protagonist together right then. The 2 servants energize their bodies and charge with everything to try to run over our hero with raw strength. However, their movements are far too slow for a Foundation establishment cultivator, and our hero dodges without the slightest effort. The disciples watching from afar are impressed by our main character's rapid progress, but still show concern over him fighting multiple opponents at once. Paying no mind to the concerns, our protagonist channels his reddish energy into his fingertips. He fires a devastating burst of energy that throws the henchman far away at that very moment. See his men defeated, Hu Qiang activates his tiger bestial transformation and leaps from above in total fury to try to crush him. The transformed brute plunges from the skies roaring and promising to send our main character straight to the netherworld. Except our hero just gives a confident smile and prepares a strike charge with pure flaming power. At the exact moment of impact, our protagonist strikes the tiger with an overwhelming force mid-air. The strike is so brutal that it hurls the transformed beast directly against his own cronies on the ground. Even fallen and bleeding, the bully still tries to threaten, telling our main character to wait for payback. Showing emphasized patience for Gravado, our hero steps hard on the guy's back. Looking at the attacker with a cold and intimidating countenance, he simply orders him to shut his mouth. The other servant disciples celebrate the victory, praising our main character for finally putting those tyrants in their proper place, while he asks for a minute of everyone's attention. Using his spiritual energy, he rips the pouch of spirit stones off the defeated bully's body. Our hero displays the bag of coins and announces with a smile that he will return all that stolen money to the people Hu Qiang extorted daily. Next, he tosses the spirit stones into the air, making wealth rain down on the disciples present. The crowd throws themselves to the ground cheering to gather the stones, shouting Zhao Mu's name at the top of their lungs. And the reward comes immediately. The system beeps notifying that for donating 9,000 spirit stones, he activates a return multiplied by 1,000, receiving 9 million spirit stones in inventory. Right after, our main character approaches senior brother Wang Chan, who always supported him in the quarters, and hands him a Q refining pill. The senior tries to refuse immediately, saying that such a valuable item is too precious for him to accept just like that. Lacking patience for formalities, our hero simply throws the pill straight into the poor guy's mouth, telling him to stop dragging it out and swallow at once. While the senior chokes in shock, the system triggers another notification, multiplying the donation by 100 and granting our hero a second-grade foundation establishment pill. Catching his breath, the senior praises our main character's strength, but warns him that the faction behind Hu Qiang is influential, advising him to get promoted to the outer sect quickly and secure a protector. Our protagonist fully agrees with the advice, confirming that this is exactly his intention to continue progressing safely. The scene shifts to the grand main complex of the outer sect. Inside the Great Hall, a massive cauldron surrounded by intense flames dominates the environment under the care of those responsible for the place. In the center of the hall stands Jang Dinkin, the influential outer sect manager in charge of supervising promotions and disciples. Our main character approaches with a respectful stance and introduces himself as Disciple Zhao Miu to greet the outer sect manager. However, the manager barely bothers to look at him, maintaining a cold and distant silence. The man focuses his attention on the flames of the cauldron, making the fire surge abruptly with a simple gesture. Suddenly, the cauldron undergoes a violent reaction and explodes in the manager's face, releasing dense smoke and scaring our hero. Coughing amid the steam and ashes, the old man tries to catch his breath, visibly irritated. Without the slightest shame, he takes his frustration out on our protagonist, accusing him of distracting his mind and ruining the refinement before telling the boy to get out of there. Our main character analyzes the scene quickly and realizes that the old man blew up the cauldron on purpose, suspecting on the spot that someone powerful must be pulling strings behind the scenes to sabotage him. Seeing that the old Nair insists on rudely kicking him out, our hero asks the manager to calm down without showing the slightest shaken reaction. Instead of clashing head-on, our protagonist simply extends his hand and offers an absurd bribe of 50,000 spirit stones, making the old man spit out his tea in sheer shock. The effect of the money is immediate. The manager beams from ear to ear and prepares to issue the outer disciple token that very instant. Taking advantage of the old man softening up, our hero asks directly who was the person that paid to block his promotion. The Dahan denies the question, claiming he only accepts payments to solve problems and would never betray a client's trust. Except our main character simply pulls out another mountain of spirit stone bags, asking with an ironic smile if that extra amount would be enough to make him talk. Faced with so much money, the greedy man clears his throat awkwardly and asks our hero to step closer to talk in secret. The old man reveals the client's name, and our hero is surprised to discover that the one responsible for the sabotage is none other than Chu Jaren. He knows she possesses gigantic influence in the outer sect, with spies everywhere, and realizes that continuing to wander around there would be asking to walk into a trap. Our protagonist courteously thanks him for the information, while the old man pretends he said nothing to protect himself. Next, he summons his flying sword and takes off into the skies in search of a safe place. He decides that the best option at the moment is to look for his ally Lu Qi to hide in her quarters until the dust settles. Shortly after, he approaches the luxurious pavilion where the young woman resides in the mountains. However, as he approaches the balcony, our hero is surprised to see two men leaving directly from her chambers. It was Elder Lu Haikong, one of the sect's 12 elders, accompanied by the prodigy Long Tiangxiang, 5th place in the Demon Sect Genius rankings. The elder enthusiastically comments that now that Lu Q has reached the core formation realm, the arranged marriage between the two should already be planned. The young prodigy respectfully agrees, assuring that as soon as he wins this year's grand hunting competition, he will marry the elder's granddaughter. Watching everything hidden, our hero just gives a mocking chuckle upon realizing the so-called genius's naivety. As soon as the two leave, our main character knocks gently on the door and calls for the senior sister. Lu Chu opens the door right away, looking visibly radiant to see our hero there. Upon entering the room, he asks in a provocative tone if her fiancé came to discuss the marriage, but the girl cuts the conversation off irritated, saying she hates hearing that guy's name. Approaching with total intimacy, she sits beside him and asks what brought him to her quarters so suddenly. Our protagonist explains that he needed to seek shelter there because of the traps of that vixen who was trying to block his promotion. The young woman gets indignant and states that since she just reached the core formation realm, as soon as she stabilizes her level she will personally settle scores with her rival. Next, she approaches with a passionate look, recognizing that her rapid progress in cultivation is entirely due to his help. Lu Xi throws herself into our main character's arms without the slightest shyness, while he warns that he will not be able to hold back the energy of his Crimson Yang body if she keeps teasing. Openly asking him to help her cultivate that energy, the girl begins to undress without hesitation. The night progresses with the two surrendering to an intensive dual cultivation session behind closed doors. The next morning, Lu Q rests on the bed completely drained and flushed after the entire night of practice. Our hero stretches satisfied, but is intrigued to see that the system notification granted a return of only 50 times for harvesting his energy. The system explains that because he practiced with Lu Q many times in a row, the reward multiplier began to suffer diminishing returns. Analyzing the mechanics, our main character concludes that focusing investments on a single partner drastically reduces system profits. He deduces that to maximize returns, the ideal strategy would be to diversify his relationships with other senior sisters in the sect. Satisfied with his own flawless logic, our protagonist is absolutely certain that this is the right path. Leaving those distractions for later, he focuses on what really matters and begins another meditation session to raise his power level. With the flow of resources, his energy explodes and the system notifies his successive breakthroughs to the third and fourth layers of the Foundation Establishment realm. However, before he can reach the fifth layer, the flow of energy stops abruptly when the resources he was using run out completely. His crimson yen-sacred body glows with golden markings as it absorbs every last drop of available energy. He realizes that the amount of resources required by his sacred constitution is absurd and that he will need to accumulate even greater fortunes in the future. At that instant, a noise at the window catches his attention, and he notices the silhouette of someone lurking outside. Curious, our hero opens the wooden window to investigate who is spying on the room. To his absolute shock, face with him at the window is none other than the chilling saint of the demon sect. Completely caught off guard and being entirely shirtless, our hero takes a step back and greets the woman with an extra nervous, awkward smile. With a firm look full of authority, the woman steps closer and demands that the young man call her by her name, Enzichuan. Unshaken, our protagonist remains sitting with a calm smile and asks what special matter brought her to look for him. The woman observes him in silence for a few moments, leaving the young man visibly apprehensive and failing to understand the stare. Without saying a single word, she steps even closer and gives a light touch directly to his abdomen. Next, she reveals bluntly that she needs his pure yang power to help her in her cultivation, catching our hero off guard. Surprised by the direct proposal, the boy quickly rests his hand on her shoulder to nudge her lightly and gain some space. He joins his hands as a sign of respect and asks her to stop joking, arguing that harvesting-type techniques have low efficiency in advanced stages. The dispute deeply irritates the woman, who releases a scary purple aura that very instant. The spiritual pressure exerted by her is so overwhelming that it throws the young man backward, leaving him immobile on the bed before such strength. Dominating the situation with a cold glare, she tells him to stop talking nonsense and demands to know only whether he accepts or not. Sensing real danger, the boy puts on a forced smile and answers submissively that if it is her order, he certainly accepts. Although promising internally that one day he would surpass that woman, he asks in a provocative tone which position she prefers so that he can cooperate. The woman stares at him intently, while the protagonist maintains his confident smile without showing fear. Having no patience for his provocations, she opens a purple spatial portal and orders angrily that he ask no unnecessary questions. A bright flash of energy appears at the location, instantly transporting the two to another environment. The scene shifts to an immense structure under an ancestral tree, where the entrance to her secret abode lies. Upon stepping out of the portal, Enzichuan walks forward with firm steps and tells the boy to follow her without dragging his feet. She explains that this place is the Purple Sky Cave Retreat, her isolated cultivation area where no one will disturb them. Without wasting time, our main character begins untying his clothes that very instant, making the woman turn around startled and ask what he thinks he is doing. Quite a narrist, she makes it clear that she does not need him to take off his clothes that way, as she has already made her own preparations. With a mocking air, he comments that she prefers to take the initiative, but warns that harvesting yields much more when there is mutual cooperation, except that before he could continue his speech, a band of fabric fired by her shuts the young man's mouth that same second. Right after, the boy appears completely tied to a wooden post, while the woman orders him to close his eyes and assist in the cultivation. With a threatening and blushing look, she warns that if he does not obey immediately, the only alternative will be his demise. A short time later, the protagonist emerges from a thermal spring, catching his breath after being thrown into the water. Enzichuan coldly orders him to clean his whole body, and the young man answers in a playful tone that he will comply with the saint's orders. Upon putting on a white robe, he tries to tease by asking if he is dreaming, but she tells him to shut up while gathering magical energy in her hand. Even before he can explain himself, the impact of the saint's spiritual power launches the boy through the air. He lands right on the retreat's bed and complains in shock upon realizing he was thrown far away again. Lying on the bed, the young man mentally acknowledges that the saint's strength is far too overwhelming and that he has no way to resist at the moment. Suddenly, he feels something strange and notices that a tongue is licking his face by surprise. Looking properly, he discovers two feline-looking puppets named Enlil and Yuan looking for their master. The cat girls climb onto his lap and ask coyly what is wrong and if by chance they are not pretty enough. They explain that they are puppets created by the saint to extract his crimson yang energy, asking him to cooperate to finish everything in 2 hours. Upon understanding the situation, our main character gets extremely irritated, realizing he was handed over to substitutes and they even set a short time limit, feeling totally underrated. Without thinking twice, he firmly grabs one of the puppets by the shoulder, catching the girl off guard. The boy reverses the position right away, pins the girl to the bed, and warns with a dark smile that he will show them his true strength. The pink-haired puppet tries to protest and asks him to go easy on her sister, but the boy takes absolute control of the situation. With a daze seized by pure determination, our protagonist charges with everything, leaving the girls desperate with the overwhelming pace. Time passes through the peaceful scenery of cherry blossoms, while the process extends for much longer than expected. Outside, and Zixuan waits sitting on her throne, listening to the distant moans and wondering angrily how long that bastard will continue. When the confrontation finally ends, the two puppets collapse completely exhausted on the bench, while the young man steps out of the spring refreshed. He notes that the water from that thermal spring increases his crimson yang power even further, causing him to remain full of energy even after so much effort. The two girls walk out with difficulty holding their stomachs, leaving the boy confused upon seeing the state they were left in. They kneel before the saint and beg for forgiveness, justifying that Zhao Mu's constitution is too strong and that is why the time ran over. Covering her mouth slightly embarrassed, and Zixuan answers that she watched the whole process and recognizes it was not their fault. Next, she tells the two to leave the collected crimson yang fluid and withdraw to heal the damage suffered. The puppets agree immediately and bow in respect, leaving the golden chalices filled with the resource. The saint then approaches the protagonist, who turns to her curiously upon sensing her presence. With a mocking smile, Zhao Mu asks if his performance was not bad, and she just crosses her arms, coldly countering that it was merely average. Right after, the saint tosses a reward in his direction, handing over a bag and 4 vials filled with resources. Upon examining the items, our protagonist is radiant to realize he received 10 million spirit stones and 4 vials of extremely high-quality base establishment pills. Already properly dressed, the young man puts everything away satisfied and thinks to himself that the saint really is someone very generous. Seeing that he remains standing in the same place, and Zixuan stares at him coldly and asks what he is still doing there looking like a fool. Within this Jewish smile on his face, the boy jokingly suggests that if she really wants to absorb the crimson yang energy, the results would be much better if they did direct dual cultivation. The bold proposal takes the woman by surprise, leaving her immediately blushing and furious with his audacity. Without thinking twice, she uses her spatial magic to expel him from there, shouting angrily for him to get out of her sight that instant. In the blink of an eye, a purple flash wraps around the boy and transports him out of the retreat. The protagonist reappears sitting in a quiet room, trying to reorient himself after the sudden transport. Looking around, he realizes he is back beside Lu Qiu and mentally acknowledges that the saint's spatial abilities are truly impressive. At that moment, a system screen appears in front of him, notifying that his crimson yang energy contribution to Zixuan greatly enhanced his crimson yang sacred body. Wrapped in a glowing golden aura, our hero begins to absorb the benefits of this strengthening in his body. Satisfied with the result, the young man smiles with a clenched fist, confirming his theory that interacting with different people yields even greater prizes from the system. He also assesses that as long as the saint needs his crimson yang power, his position and stay in the sect will be completely secured. Meanwhile, back at the retreat, and Zixuan stares intently at the golden chalice containing the concentrated energy fluid. Sitting on her throne, the woman murmurs to herself, hoping that resource from the boy does not disappoint her in cultivation. She drinks the entire contents of the chalice, but upon absorbing the liquid, involuntary memories of the boy interacting with the puppets invade her mind. The impact of that energy makes the saint stammer and turn completely red with embarrassment from her own body's reaction. Resorting to her purple aura to stabilize her mind, she tries to convince herself that he is just a cultivation tool and will never affect her domain. Outside, the two puppets watch their master lose concentration and suspect that the young man's crimson yang fluid might have some unexpected side effect. The scene shifts to the serene dawn outside the main chambers of the sect. Senior sister Lu Qiu wakes up in bed, stretching with a lazy yawn as she begins the day. Looking to the side, she notices our protagonist already sitting in a meditation posture, wrapped in an intense cultivation aura. Impressed, the young woman approaches smiling and praises the boy's dedication, while he opens his eyes and explains he had a slight inspiration to advance his domain. Excited with his progress, the girl leans in and invites him to challenge the famous path of ascension to heaven together. The location is a legendary ancestral portal of the St. Yuan demon sect used as a trial for disciples. The challenge features 12 paths in total, and the general rule says that whoever manages to reach the 3rd layer earns the right to enter the top 100 ranking of outer sect prodigies. This happens because from that 3rd layer onward, powerful core formation stage demons appear to test the participants. As they walk through the location, Lu Qiu comments about Chu Jiaran, the 9th ranked person in the standing, explaining that she can endure the duration of an incense stick on the 4th layer. Our Nin character tries to tone it down, saying she did not need to go that far on his account, but the girl counters that doing so is also in her own interest. The senior sister confesses that many consider Chu Jiaran the most promising cultivator in the outer sect, but she completely disagrees and wants to prove who has true talent. The young man analyzes her rant in silence, aware that although the sect treats humans and demons as equals, internal rivalries continue to exist. Since he is now also an outer disciple, our hero smiles and agrees that going to the challenge together is perfect, leaving the girl radiant. The two then arrive before the imposing purple trial portal to begin the test. At the portal exit, several disciples appear injured and defeated, lamenting the monstrous strength of the 3rd layer creatures. In contrast, a group of students gathers around a horned disciple, praising his impressive climb of 47 positions in the ranking. This is Niu Tai, the 79th ranked person in the prodigy standing, who laughs arrogantly, saying it is all due to his talent and effort. However, the brute's pride does not last long upon noticing the approach of a threatening figure covered in a purple aura. Chu Jiaran appears with her arms crossed and coldly reminds Niu Tai who helped him evolve, telling the guy to hurry up and fulfill the mission he received. That same instant, several disciples congratulate Lu Qi on her climb in the ranking, making the red-haired provocator mock her rival's modest progress. With a calm smile, Luca firmly counters that climbing a few positions is already enough to surpass a certain manipulative vixen. Irritated by the insult, Chu Jiaran brings to her side the intimidating Niwo from the inner sect, asking if Lu Qi will be capable of protecting Zhao Mu from that veteran. Recognizing the guy as Niu Ti's older cousin, Lu Qiu gets worried upon realizing he came to avenge his relative's defeat, leaving our hero in a tight spot. Later, already inside the trial, our protagonist appears sitting in meditation while channeling purple lightning around himself. He executes three hand swirls at mastery and activates the purple lightning entanglement technique. The power is released in an overwhelming explosion of lightning that shatters the surrounding stone structure. Feeling electricity running through his hands, he reflects that lightning techniques are difficult to master, but his high comprehension allowed him to learn the basics in very little time. Observing the trail of destruction on the ground, the young man notes the technique's great range and concludes it will be perfect for facing multiple enemies at the same time. Satisfied with the training, our hero stands up refreshed and lets out a sigh of relief for having rested enough. He walks toward the staircases of the next layer, curious to discover what kind of strong enemy awaits him on the 4th level of the trial. Upon facing the next challenge, the young man is greeted by an intimidating demonic beast, roaring with sharp teeth and drool dripping. It is a huge leopard covered in spiritual flames, positioned atop the cliff right in front of the portal. Sensing the opponent's overwhelming pressure, our protagonist recognizes the danger and looks visibly apprehensive. Without backing down, he channels flames into his hands and decides to do his best while the creature leaps furiously in his direction. In an extremely fast movement, the leopard delivers a slash to the young man's chest, making blood splatter. Ignoring the pain of the wound, our main character reacts immediately, counterattacking with the burning flame palm technique. A gigantic rain of fire is shot toward the monster to try to incinerate it. However, the beast dodges with impressive agility, leaving the boy shocked at such speed. Realizing that direct attacks will not work, he strikes the ground and discharges purple lightning across the whole arena to paralyze the opponent. The electrical discharge hits the leopard mid-air, allowing our hero to finally trap the creature. Taking advantage of the opening, the boy prepares another flaming strike to his chest to hit with his strongest attack. Except that to his surprise, the monster manages to change direction in mid-air and dodge the strike at the last second. But it was all a trap, and the boy releases the purple lightning entanglement at point-blank range, hitting the leopard with no chance of dodging. The beast is launched far by the electrical explosion, ending up severely injured and fallen on the ground. Suddenly, the protagonist's chest bleeds intensely again while he feels a sharp jab of pain. Lacking the strength to remain standing, the boy falls to his knees on the ground, crying out in pain. Seeing the beast stand up again, our main character smiles weakly and admits defeat to the monster. However, at that exact moment, the system screen appears notifying that surrendering to the beast's attack activated the 10,000-fold return. A divine golden light wraps around the young man's body, regenerating the chest wound and transforming his physique. He stands up covered in glowing golden flames, radiating a majestic and overwhelming presence. The system confirms that he obtained the legendary human emperor lineage, leaving the boy perplexed by such a reward. The system screen reveals the history of this lineage, showing visions of ancestral warriors fighting against territorial monsters. The information explains that in the past, the human race lived through a period of extreme weakness and was on the brink of extinction. At that critical moment, grandmasters emerged among humans to lead the resistance against the oppressors. They honed their bodies and lineages to the absolute limit, conquering an invincible combat power that secured humanity's counterattack. Feeling his ancestral strength running through his veins, the boy confidently clenches his fist, sure that one day he will be able to exterminate all his enemies. A thundering shockwave explodes around the protagonist, shaking the entire test arena. The impact is so brutal that it opens gigantic cracks in the ground, making the leopard back away terrified. With an arrogant smile, our hero gestures mockingly and asks if the little pet still wants to keep playing. The leopard retreats whimpering in fear, realizing that the opponent before it has become something monstrous. Desperate, the beast plucks up courage and charges for one last leap with all the strength it has left. Except that for the young man's new power level, the monster's movements have become far too slow. With extreme ease, he dodges to the side and appears behind the creature without the slightest effort. With a single devastating golden strike, our main character splits the leopard in two in the blink of an eye. The Yodan victoriously wipes the dust off his hands, letting out a calm sigh after ending the 4th layer combat. Next, the system screen appears offering 3 rewards: the 4th grade wind walking pill, the frostfall spear, and the great steel cleavage hand technique. Without worrying, he chooses the 4th grade pill, thinking about donating it to someone and generating more returns in the future. Walking toward the exit, he imagines with a smile that the outside must be quite bustling at this hour. And he could not be more right, as in the outer courtyard disciples shout in surprise upon seeing the ranking change again. The stern tablet glows intensely, showing that Zhao Mu reached the absolute first place in the outer sect prodigy ranking. Lu Chuso brings away upon seeing that the boy made it, while Chujiaren stands incredulous seeing his name at the top. Meanwhile Niuao, the inner sect veteran, stares at the result with fury and swears he will use all his strength to crush the newcomer in the future. Oblivious to all the commotion outside, our hero crosses the purple barrier and advances to the 5th layer of the trial. Except that upon stepping onto the new level, he comes face to face with 5-gram demons at the intermediate core formation stage. Realizing the exaggeration of the challenge, the young man raises his hands with an awkward smile and says there is no need for so many beasts to attack. Without listening, one of the grand demons thrusts a giant spear directly toward the young man's head, but to the monster's surprise, our main character holds the sharp blade with his bare hand wrapped in a golden aura and asks the opponent to calm down. The beast is shocked to see that its heavy attack was blocked without the slightest effort. Smiling mockingly, the boy warns that he will return to challenge them when he has even more strength and begins to voluntarily withdraw from the trial. Disappearing in a golden glow, the boy promises with a confident look that this reunion will not take long to happen. In the outer courtyard, disciples shout in surprise upon seeing a column of golden light appearing with Zhao Mu's exit from the trial. Our main character blinks out of the portal with a playful smile, mocking as he asks if that whole crowd came just to welcome him. Except that without giving time for celebrations, Nuo leaps from above wrapped in flames and plunges brutally toward the boy. The intercept brute stares at the boy with a sadistic smile and warns that he has been waiting for him for a long time. Before the attack hits the young man, Lu Chui and Chu Jiren quickly appear and place themselves in front of the villain. Brandishing her sword, Lu Ku warns that he is Niueo, 8th place in the intersect, while Chu Jiren tells the boy to run first while they hold the monster back. Our hero is surprised and asks Chu Jiren the reason for helping, but the girl just turns her face and counters that she has her own reasons. Perceiving the protection from the two, Niueo deduces that the elders behind them notice Zhao Mu's potential and decides he needs to eliminate him before reinforcements arrive. The demon advances furiously, pushing the girls, screaming that no one will stop him from avenging his cousin. Unintimidated, our main character snaps his fingers and warns that the warm-up is over, decided to test the strength of a cultivator at the peak of core formation. Activating the human emperor lineage, the boy steps forward openly and throws a direct punch against the opponent's giant fist. The clash between the two strikes generates an overwhelming energy explosion that shakes the entire square. The onlookers are thrown by the wind and stand shocked to see a 5th-level foundation establishment cultivator go head-to-head with the peak of core formation. Nuo widens his eyes, unable to believe it, as he feels his strength blocked and immediately recognizes the glow of the human emperor lineage. Holding a monster's giant fist with one hand, the boy provokes, saying that in a test of pure strength, the veteran is no match for him. Grinding his teeth in anger, the demon realizes the newcomer hides too many secrets and decides he can no longer hold back his trump card. He activates a golden seal on his chest containing a devastating energy, catching our hero by surprise. Seeing the imminent danger, Lu Chu screams in despair for Zhao Mu to flee the location immediately. Nuo releases the golden seal and laughs wildly, saying that falling to that sword intent is an honor for the boy. The villain launches the slashing attack, while the protagonist prepares to endure the deadly charge. A golden dragon made of pure sword intent moves forward roaring and hits the young man squarely in the chest. Upon taking the impact, our main character immediately recognizes that the strike carries Long Tianxiang's sword intent. With no option, the boy forces the human emperor lineage to the maximum limit to try to contain and absorb the attack. Grinding his teeth as the power chews through his body, the boy refuses to yield and fights to hold firm. A colossal golden explosion wraps around the place, destroying the ground around and covering everything in dust. Lu Chu tries to run forward the impact, shouting for the young man, but Chu Jiren holds her back, worrying that it is useless. The red-haired girl silently laments, knowing that a nascent soul cultivator's sword intent would reduce anyone at Foundation establishment to ashes. Nuo watches the smoke, laughing arrogantly, stating that such is the fate of anyone who dares challenge a Grand Master. Lu Chu stares at the villain, overcome by hatred, unable to accept the loss of her companion. Suddenly, weak coughs begin to echo from the middle of the dust haze, catching everyone by surprise. When the dust settles, our hero appears smiling with blood in his mouth, mocking the strength of Long Tianxiang's sword intent. Even with his chest injured, the boy stays standing and provokes, saying the legendary strike was nothing special. Nuo stands completely perplexed seeing the boy alive, while Lu Chu celebrates relieved upon noting her companion survive. In panic, the demon leaps furiously with flaming hands to give the finishing blow to the exhausted young man. Lu Chu throws herself in front with her sword and orders the villain to stop immediately. But the monster strikes her with a fire blow and throws her far away, screaming for no one to get in his way. He brings his fist down with full force against the protagonist, who laments being without strength to move his body. Except that before the punch hits the boy, a devastating purple light plunges from the sky and crushes Nuo directly into the ground. Trapped on the floor by the overwhelming pressure, the demon roars in fury, asking who dares stop him. Floating in the air wrapped in a majestic purple aura, Saint Zixuan appears, imposing her presence. Looking at the villain with total disdain, she coldly asks if he has any objection to her intervention. Terrified, Neo immediately kneels on the broken ground, trembling as he wonders why the saint appeared there. All the surrounding disciples bow in respect, greeting the arrival of the maximum local authority. Landing softly before the boy, and Zixuan admits with crossed arms that he really managed to impress her this time. She praises the unprecedented feat in the sect's history, and our hero responds modestly that it was just luck. The same man extends her hand to the boy and asks directly if he is willing to accept her as his master. Before the boy can answer, trails of red light cut through the sky with voices seeking the new human race prodigy. 3 human elders arrive flying on their artifacts and arguing loudly among themselves about who will keep the precious disciple. The surrounding disciples follow the scene in shock, until one of them explains that those are the human elders of the St. Yuan demon sect. Landing at the location with an intense purple aura, Zhou Siliong, 5th elder and sect formation master, confronts the saint, demanding she not take human race talent for her clan. The 7th elder of the St. Yuan demon sect, Fan Deng, introduces himself, trying to convince the saint to leave the human prodigy with him, highlighting his fame as a renowned alchemist. Next, Du Guzhan, 3rd elder, intervenes, stating that strength is the only thing that matters, promising high-level armors and his secret combat technique to win over the young man. Upon seeing the dispute, the other disciples stand shocked to realize 3 of the 4 human elders of the sect appeared all at once just to fight over Zhao Mu's absurd aptitude. The masters begin to pressure the boy, offering privileges and valuable cauldrons, demanding he make a choice immediately among the different specialties. But instead of being intimidated by the veteran's pressure, our protagonist gives a clever smile and simply suggests being trained by all of them at the same time. The unbelievable proposal leaves the 3 elders completely speechless, paralyzed without knowing how to react to such a bold suggestion. The saint just gives an amused smile and tosses the responsibility back to them, saying she does not mind if the elders agree to the idea. Obviously, the old men refuse on the spot, explaining that formations, combat, and alchemy require years of exclusive dedication and that it would be impossible to focus on everything simultaneously. Unshaken to mutter refusal, Zhao Mu makes a dramatic pose of determination and proposes spending 3 days training with each of them individually to prove his worth. He argues that if he can meet each master's expectations in that short period, it will be proven that he has the capacity to learn all 3 disciplines together. Amused by the young man's boldness and confidence, the saint ends the debate with a giggle and decrees that the agreement is made on those exact terms. Next, she prepares to take away the demonic cultivator who had captured Zhao Mu earlier, promising to demand explanations about the attack while the prisoner thanks her on his knees. Seeing her helpful attitude, our main character smiles satisfied and concludes that this saint is a much more generous person than she appears. Our protagonist takes the opportunity to drop a joke offering his help in cultivation in the future, which leaves the lady visibly embarrassed and awkward. Before the boy continues talking nonsense, the formation master elder ties him with his aura and pulls him to start training without wasting time. As they are carried away, other disciples say goodbye in the background and alert one of the veterans to stay attentive against possible schemes from rivals. The surrounding crowd watches everything impressed, commenting on the fate of the young man, who just entered directly into the sect's elite. Meanwhile, the demonic cultivator responsible for capturing Zhao Mu swallows hard, seized by absolute despair. The guy realizes that the boy he captured became a personal disciple of the elders, which means his stay in the sect has become unsustainable. To make his situation worse, his whole family lives under the sect's rule, making any attempt at escape a sentence of death. That is when he remembers that the Great Xia dynasty, Zhao Mu's homeland, is being attacked by the rival Great Zhou, and realizes that protecting that place might be his only salvation. Without wasting a second, he flies off at full speed to find his father and organize this plan before it is too late. The scene then shifts to Kofound Formation Peak, the sacred mountain where the sect's greatest formation masters isolate themselves to train. Elder Zhou and Zhao Mu land softly at the location wrapped in purplish magical energy. The master proudly explains that the valley houses more than 3,000 active formations and functions as the main defense core of the entire sect. Curious about the place's grandiosity, Zhao Mu asks if the legendary Heavenly Path formation was also created by him, catching the elder by surprise. A bit embarrassed, the old man admits that despite being considered a genius, that supreme structure is far beyond the reach of his skills. He reveals that the formation was created by the founding patriarch himself 8,000 years ago, being the true pillar that keeps the sect standing in the middle of the 10,000 demons forest. Impressed by the feat, Zhao Mu questions the patriarch's whereabouts, citing rumors about his mysterious disappearance 1,000 years after creating the sect. The elder relates that several legends exist. Some say he ascended to another world, while others claim he discovered a forbidden secret and ended up sealed by unknown forces. The revelation leaves Zhao Mu quite tense, imagining how terrifying the faction capable of imprisoning a monster of that level must be. Cutting through the heavy mood, the master warns that it is still too early to worry about those things and calls the boy inside the cave to test his aptitudes. Upon entering the location, they arrive before an imposing temple built inside the mountain. As soon as they approach the entrance, a young woman with pink hair and eye-catching clothes emerges to greet the old elder. This is Sean Yuram, Elder Joe's direct disciple, who is surprised to see her master returning accompanied by a stranger. But our protagonist stands completely girlized looking at the girl, marveled by the veteran's prominent bust. He tries to hide his embarrassment quickly, hoping he did not give off the image of a pervert on their very first meeting. Elder Joe makes the formal introductions, announcing that Zhao Mu is his newest disciple and her fellow training partner. The master explains that although Yurong's cultivation level is not high, she is a rare prodigy in the arts of divine runes, making Zhao Mu greet her with all due respect. Next, the elder warns that he needs to resolve some urgent matters and leaves the girl in charge of teaching the basics of formations to the newcomer. Without wasting time on idle talk, the veteran asks Zhao Mu to follow her into the study room. Arriving there, she summons a floating flaming disc to begin the boy's first practical lesson. Zhao Wu receives the object curiously and asks what it is about, being instructed to place the divine rune disc against his forehead. Following the girl's instructions, he closes his eyes to try to feel the tool's energy with his mind instead of his vision. That same instant, an infinity of glowing golden runes begin to flow directly into the young man's mind. He sees himself wholly in the center of a gigantic and hyper-complex formation, absorbing the essence of those symbols without any difficulty. Seeing the boy's reaction, the veteran pulls back the disc to interrupt the connection before the excess of information harms his mind. Curious to test the newcomer's perception, she holds the artifact and asks what exactly he was able to see during the test. Zhao Wu casually answers that he saw a large disc covered in several quite strange mystical symbols. Surprised by the speed at which he managed to visualize the disc's structure, the veteran realizes that the newcomer really possesses talent out of the ordinary. Zhao Mu puts his hand on his head and admits embarrassed that he ended up getting distracted and forgot to count the exact amount of runes with precision. Sion Niram Stethos upon hearing him casually estimate that he saw between 1,000 and 2,000 runes, finding that number an absolute absurdity. She almost falls into despair remembering that on her own first time she saw only a few dozen, while Zhao Mu innocently asks if those symbols were the so-called divine runes. Regaining her composure, the veteran explains that divine runes are the fundamental force hidden in the recesses of space that maintains the order of everything in heaven and earth. She reveals that infinite variations of them exist and that even after 30 years of study and reaching the 6th grade of formation, she herself mastered only 6,700. Hearing this, Zhao Wu reflects whether his aptitude might be poor for having seen only that, leaving Yurong furious thinking the boy is just showing off shameless. Trying not to lose patience with the unintentional provocation, the young woman decides to set that aside and advance to the next stage of the practical lesson. The veteran tells him to pay close attention while she channels her spiritual energy directly into the rune disc. The next second, the surrounding scenery changes completely to a fluid environment, making Zhao Mu ask if that would be an illusion formation. She explains that she can alter the rune structure on the disc to simulate different environments and elemental phenomena according to her will. However, before she can continue the demonstration, the girl lets out a groan of pain upon suddenly exhausting her spiritual energy. Yurong ends up falling into Zhao Mu's arms, completely blushing, and admits that manipulating this level of runes demands an absurd consumption of power. Awkward with the physical proximity, the young woman gently pushes the boy's chest and warns that she can already stay standing on her own. She reveals that her true problem is her cultivation stalled at the top of Foundation Establishment, and Zhao Mu questions why she does not use a 5th grade Kaoyuan pill to form her core. Pressing her own waist, she explains that even 6th grade pills fail because her purple mansion is damaged from birth, preventing the gathering of her core veins. The girl had that only an 8th grade origin gathering pill could save her, making Zhao Mu give a sly smile upon realizing the perfect opportunity. Our main character calls the veteran with excitement and states he can get that legendary pill for her. Next, he stares at the girl with a provocative look and asks how she intends to reward him if he actually manages to deliver it. Excited by the promise, Yurong grabs Zhao Mu's clothes and guarantees she will do anything to arrange the necessary amount, no matter the price. But Zhao Mu interrupts her, reminding that a treasure of that level is something no money in the world can buy. Seeing that money would not be enough, the young woman begins stammering without knowing what else she could offer in exchange to convince him. Completely red with embarrassment, she plucks up courage and promises to give herself to him if he really fulfills the promise. Our protagonist wastes no time, grabs the girl's hands on the spot, and closes the deal before she tries to back out. Looking at his enthusiasm, Yurong immediately suspects that she fell into a very well-planned trap. Zhao Mu then pulls out a few 5th grade pills from his pocket and hands them over for the veteran to test. The girl gives a disappointed sigh upon seeing the items, remembering that 5th grade origin gathering pills no longer have the slightest effect on her body. Even so, she thanks the boy's intention, while Zhao Mu just gives a disguised giggle, knowing exactly what will come next. That is when the system kicks in, multiplying the presented gift up to 3,000 times and granting the protagonist an 8th grade origin gathering pill. Holding the newly obtained vial, Zhao Mu gives a victorious smile upon realizing that the veteran will have no way to escape the promise she made. Suddenly, a violent tremor shakes the entire cave, catching the two completely by surprise. Frightened by the impact, Zhao Mu asks what is happening, and Yurong identifies that the mountain's great protective formation was activated. 3 Sect guards arrive quickly at the location and bow respectfully to deliver reports to the veteran. With a serious posture, Yurong demands to know the reason for the damage to the valley's protective barrier. The disciple reports that 3 points of the main formation were damaged by malevolent beasts. He adds that traces of malevolent energy were found and that the Holy Sun will investigate the case personally, making Yurong dismiss them to rest. The guards confirm the order and disappear through magical teleportation circles. Yahello is serious, but the young woman minimizes the occurrence, saying that attacks by malevolent spirits are common in the St. Yuan demon sect. The boy finds that strange, questioning why malevolent creatures would attack a sect that also belongs to the demonic path. Yurong explains that the continent is divided between humans and demons who have hated each other since ancient times, leaving the sect in an extremely delicate position. Because they accept both races, they do not possess the recognition of demons nor the trust of humans, being seen as enemies on all sides. Our main character understands the politics of the place and concludes that peaceful coexistence between the races inside there is practically impossible. Feeling the wear of having used the formations, the veteran warns that she is going upstairs to rest a bit before continuing the lesson. Before heading up the stairs, she looks back and gives an express order forbidding the boy from going to the 2nd floor. Zhao Mu watches the young woman move away while putting the valuable item in his pocket. Observing the 8th grade pill vial in his hands, he laughs alone, knowing that soon she herself will beg him to come upstairs. Since he has time to spare, the boy decides to stretch out and enjoy a moment of rest as well. He removes his robe and steps into the thermal water pool located in the residence courtyard. Relaxing comfortably in the warm water, Zhao Mu praises the luxury of the elite disciples' accommodations in the sect. Next, he opens his system panel with a simple touch in the air to check his current resources. Upon checking his status, the boy notes that he possesses 7 million spirit stones, but realizes he will need 100 million more to advance to the 6th level of foundation establishment. Relaxing in the thermal water, Zhao Mu reflects that with the support of the 3 elders and the saint, his rival Long Tiangxiang will not dare attack him openly, but can still try schemes behind his back. To guarantee his safety and not be caught by surprise, our protagonist knows he needs to get stronger as fast as possible. Looking in the direction of the 2nd floor where the veteran went to rest, he decides to start his plan with her. As soon as his 10th floor fares, the 2nd floor's defense formation is activated, surrounding Zhao Mu with dozens of floating mystical blades. Zhang Yurong's voice echoes from above, demanding to know what he thinks he is trying to do. Our main character puts on an innocent face and answers that he was just curious to know where that very pleasant perfume was coming from. Wrapped in only a towel after her bath, the young woman appears at the top of the stairs and makes it clear she does not fall for that lame excuse. She warns that the 2nd floor is protected by several layers of formations that not even a nascent soul realm cultivator could easily cross. Unshaken, Zhao Wu pulls out the vial with the 8th grade origin gathering pill and answers with a calm smile that he is sure he will be able to go up. He opens the vial and makes the golden pill float over his hand, stating that the veteran herself will make a point of inviting him up. Upon recognizing the legendary pill's aura, Yurong completely loses control and rushes down the stairs at full speed. She lands right in front of Zhao Mu, flustered and clutching her towel, unable to take her eyes off the treasure in the boy's hand. In shock, the young woman confirms that it is a true 8th grade origin gathering pill. Desperate to check the item up close, she grabs Zhao Mu's arm and begs him to let her examine it. The girl changes her tone on the spot, making a coy face and calling him affectionately, "good younger brother." Zhao Mu raises his hand and pulls the pill away, warning that she can look close, but without touching. He jokes, saying that if she swallows the pill at once and then claims it was fake, he would be at a loss. Desperate, Yurong makes a solemn promise swearing that she will only look and not touch the item. But in the rush of raising her hands to swear, the girl's towel slips completely and falls to the floor. The young woman lets out a scream of horror and hides embarrassed, while Zhao Mu turns his face quickly swearing he had no fault in anything. Dying of embarrassment and wrapped up in a hurry, she fumes for him to stop nonsense and follow her to the 2nd floor immediately. She goes up the stairs furious while Zhao Mu goes right behind, loving to see how his plan worked perfectly. Our main character gives a victorious smile, remembering that a few minutes ago she had strictly forbidden his entry there. Already in the bedroom, Zhao Mu displays the pill and asks if she has finished examining the item. Analyzing every detail with attention, Yurong confirms without a shadow of a doubt that it is a genuine 8th grade pill. The young woman begs him to name a price, promising to sell everything she has to pay, but the boy answers that money is not his problem. Suddenly, Zhao Nu smells an extremely pleasant aroma in the air and begins sniffing the environment. Curious, he asks the veteran where exactly that striking perfume is coming from. Yurong then summons in the palm of her hand a vase with a glowing orchid that emanates a green magical aura. She proposes trading the plant for the pill, but Zhao Mu puts on a doubtful face, questioning if a simple sweet-smelling flower would be worth as much as an 8th grade pill. The girl hurriedly explains that it is the Lingji celestial orchid, a very rare 8th grade spiritual herb found by her father in a secret realm. She adds that the 7th elder evaluated the plant and that when it matures, it will become an invaluable treasure. To secure the deal, Yurong approaches and offers to add 50 million more spirit stones as a bonus in the trade. Zhao Mu realizes that the herb by itself was already worth it, but seeing the veteran's desperation, resolves to press a bit more to extract better advantages. Our protagonist makes light of it, saying that cultivating such an herb until it matures takes hundreds of years and will cost a fortune. Biting her finger nervously, the young woman cannot deny that the maturation process really takes a long time. Afraid of losing the pill, she leans forward and promises to offer even more benefits to the boy. The girl shoves her hand into the neckline of her attire to pull out another secret item she kept with her. When she pulls out a bright golden fabric, Zhao Mu makes a drama and asks what kind of person she thinks he is. Red with embarrassment, Yurong asks him not to misunderstand and look at the object with more attention. The fabric unfolds into a golden armor of flexible and gleaming mesh, leaving the boy impressed. She explains that it is the Dragon Tendon Armor, a 7th grade defensive artifact capable of changing shape and enduring even attacks from experts in the nascent soul realm. Zhao Mu praises the equipment and asks if she is really going to give that to him, and the young woman answers that she almost never leaves the valley and has no use for the armor. Satisfied with the offer, our main character thanks her generosity and begins opening his attire to put on the armor right then. As the golden mesh merges to his sculpted body, Yurong watches in admiration, seeing the boy's physique up close. On realizing she was staring too much, the young woman gets completely embarrassed while Zhao Mu adjusts his clothing without understanding a thing. Next, the boy remembers the 50 million spirit stones he received and decides to use them to activate his system skill. He returns the value of coins to Yurong, making a show of modesty, saying he feels embarrassed to accept so much. When she accepts the gift, the system triggers a 200-fold multiplier on the returned spirit stones. The system gives Zhao Mu the surreal sum of 10 billion spirit stones, solving all his resource problems for his next breakthroughs. With 10 billion spirit stones in his pocket, Zhao Mu announces that he feels his cultivation about to advance and asks to borrow a room to meditate. Yurong is quite surprised to see the boy's haste, questioning if he had not made a breakthrough a very short time ago to already be advancing again. Oblivious to the veteran's shock, Zhao Mu enters the room and locks the door to begin his isolated cultivation. Sitting in a lotus position, our main character activates his system interface and gives the command to start the process. A colossal amount of spirit stones converts instantly into pure energy, flowing directly into the young man's body. The scene shows the outside of the residence while 3 full days pass during the protagonist's cultivation. Settled in the courtyard, Yurong drinks tea while wondering curiously how her young colleague's training progress is going. Inside the room, Zhao Yu is completely covered in a devastating golden aura and emanates an absurd heat. With an explosion of power that rips part of his clothes, our hero completes his breakthrough and reaches directly the 8th level of Foundation Establishment. Impressed by his own physique, he notes that 10 billion spirit stones served only to go up 2 levels due to his constitution's insane demand. Suddenly, Elder Zhou's voice arises right behind him with a chuckle, leaving Zhao Mu surprised by the sudden visit. The master appears through a teleportation circle and asks in a good, humored tone how the boy's first night in the valley was. Our protagonist bows on the spot and greets his master with all due respect. Zhao Mu reports that he learned a lot about the fundamentals of formations with the veteran and can already feel the vibrations of the divine runes. But Elder Zhou waves his hands and says with a clever face that it was not about training he was asking. With a sly look, the master asks what the boy thought of Yurong and if he has a romantic interest in the young woman. Facing his disciple's surprise, the old man warns that the girl possesses an extremely powerful and far from simple background. He reveals that Yurong belongs to the Forest King Bear clan of the 10,000 Demons Forest, and that her father is an expert in the Transcendent Tribulation realm with huge influence among demons. The master encourages the boy, saying that marrying her would save 1,000 years of effort, but Zhao Mu answers that his main focus at the moment is purely cultivation. In his thoughts, our main character laughs alone, knowing that with his overpowered system, he would never tie himself to a single option. At that moment, 7th Elder Fandang's loud voice echoes through the valley, demanding that old Zhou hand over his disciple. Elder Zhou crosses his arms and grumbles that the old alchemist is far too punctual when it comes to fetching new students. Before the boy leaves, the master hands over 3 valuable formation manuals so that he can continue studying during the period with the other elder. The two then walk together to the outer courtyard to meet the visitor. Fandai appears floating on stones and arrives, provoking Zhao Mu, asking if he realized he has no knack for being a formation master. The alchemist pulls the boy by the shoulder and argues that alchemy requires less mental aptitude and that his pure yang sacred body is perfect for controlling flames. But Elder Zhou counters proudly, revealing that Zhao Mu visualized over 1,000 divine runes right off the bat in the test tool. The news leaves Fandang completely dumbfounded, knowing that such talent is unprecedented in the sect's 8,000-year history. Even more excited with the young man's potential, Fandang pulls Zhao Mu onto his flying gourd and takes him straight to the Medicine King Valley. From the valley floor, Yurong watches the flying gourd vanish on the horizon while holding the received pill close to her chest. Holding the valuable gift, the girl is visibly touched and thinks fondly of her new sect colleague. The scene shifts to the Medicine King Valley, the sacred mountain dedicated to pill refining and medicine. The flying gourd lands softly in the large central courtyard of the peak. Fandang asks if Zhao Mu has any experience with fire element techniques, and the boy answers modestly that he knows a little. The master then summons a giant golden cauldron in the middle of the courtyard to start the test. He instructs the young man to heat the cauldron with his flames while he himself adds the herbs, demanding precise control so as not to burn them. Zhao Mu channels his power and summons intense golden flames that wrap around his arms. Seeing the strength of the fire, Fandang is impressed by the overwhelming purity of the pure yang fire. But upon examining closely, the elder stands shocked to realize that it resembles the legendary true flames of the sun. He celebrates knowing that this is the perfect flame for alchemy and realizes that the boy's talent surpasses all his expectations. Inside the cauldron, the perfect flame condenses the ingredients easily until forming a glowing pill. The refined item flies out of the furnace and the master captures it directly in the palm of his hand. Fandang breaks into laughs of pure joy upon seeing a supreme quality pill on the newcomer's very first attempt. The elder analyzes the pill and deduces that Zhao Mu awakened the Crimson Yang sacred body, which the boy confirms. Our main character makes a show of modesty, claiming he knows only basic arts and that his control over flames is still limited. The master says that is no problem at all, as his valley specializes in the best fire element techniques in the whole sect. He invites the disciple to accompany him to the pavilion to choose as many fire arts as he wants to practice. Entering the scripture's pavilion, Zhao Mu is impressed by the quantity of vials, but the master explains that only lower-level pills stay there. Fandang raises his hand and uses his energy to pull several sacred books from the highest shelves. He hands Earth-ranked manuals directly to the boy, telling him to ignore inferior arts, and Zhao Mu thanks his new master with respect. Upon analyzing the available martial arts manuals, such as the Chen Fire Demon Art and the Crimson Flame Tyrant Scripture, our protagonist realizes that trying to learn all at once would be a big mistake. He considers that the Crimson Flame Tyrant Scripture is a pure fire technique perfect for combat, while the Infinite Life Art helps in refinement and wound recovery. With this analysis in mind, he makes his decision and chooses to focus on those exact two techniques. His master praises his inclination for combat, but gives an important warning so he does not listen to Du Gujian if the old man tries to take him to the 10,000 Demons Forest. The elder explains that Guy is extremely reckless and would not hesitate to throw him alone straight into a nest of dangerous beasts. The young man deeply thanks the advice and guarantees he will keep the warning in his heart, leaving the master relieved that his new disciple is sensible. Right after, a voice calls for the master from outside the room. It is young Tao Subai, who approaches informing that the quarters for her new senior brother have already been properly prepared. The master introduces the girl and orders her to assist him in his first steps in learning alchemy. Along the way, the boy finds it odd that she calls him senior brother and discovers that, being a personal disciple of the elder, he holds a higher hierarchical position than hers. Upon arriving at the residence designated for personal disciples, she shows that all clothes, food, and essential items have already been organized. The girl makes herself available and warns that she lives nearby, telling him to just call her if he needs anything. Our main character does not miss the opportunity and tease her, asking in a playful tone if that would also include warming his bed. Upon noting how the girl is always so serious and reserved, he admits to himself that it is simply impossible not to mess with her. However, the mood shifts instantly when a scary red aura begins emanating from the young woman's body. She makes it very clear that, despite respect for hierarchy, she has enough strength to crush him with just one hand, making our young man back off right away. Sensing this overwhelming pressure, the young man realizes surprised that her strength surpasses even that of a cultivator in the nascent soul stage. The scene moves to the residence courtyard, where a large refining cauldron stands out in the center of the location. Before saying goodbye, she reinforces that he can let her know if he notices the lack of any important resource. Left alone in the environment, the young man observes the structure and is quite satisfied with the accommodations and tools prepared. He begins flicking through a recipe manual and notices that although they are basic first-grade pills, the composition is quite complex. Deciding that practice is worth more than theory, he resolves to use the opportunity to test the two techniques he just chose. Without wasting time, the young man lights the cauldron and throws the medicinal ingredients directly into the opening. Channeling the devastating fire of the Tyrant Scripture along with the healing energy of the Infinite Life Art, he manipulates both forces at the same time. The young man applies fire directly to the base of the structure, raising the temperature in a precise manner. He needs to maintain absolute control over the heat to purify the components without burning the materials. Inside the furnace, the essence of the herbs begins to liquefy and merge under the continuous flow of energy. Little by little, the extracts condense in the air until giving shape to the pills. With an agile movement of his hands, he extracts the refinement result straight from inside the cauldron. Although the appearance is not the most perfect, Our main character feels proud for managing to complete the process successfully on his very first attempt. What he does not imagine is that his master is watching everything from a distance through a magical projection. The elder is impressed by the scene, recognizing that the boy is a true prodigy for having talent in both formations and alchemy. Dugujan appears at his side and comments that the boy's true forte is still combat, saying he is eager to see him in the blood battle hall. He points out that the human race naturally holds the advantage in auxiliary arts, but usually suffers against demons when the subject is physical confrontation. Because of this, he keeps hope that the emergence of this young man brings fresh air to human cultivators. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to our protagonist's complex, where something unusual begins to happen. The boy appears completely sweaty and worn out after spending hours working non-stop. Around him, real mountains of piled pills have formed, showing that he took practice too far. Analyzing the result, he notes that most are basic level, but feels he reached an acceptable standard for a beginner. At that moment, he hears footsteps and realizes someone is entering the gate of his quarters. It is Taosubai, who brings a bowl of spiritual porridge prepared to restore stamina and ki. As his energy was at the limit, the hero accepts the food that very instant and thanks her greatly for the consideration. Except that looking to the side, the girl freezes totally in shock at what she sees in the courtyard. Completely in disbelief, she points at the gigantic piles and asks if he really refined all of that alone. Eating his porridge calmly, he answers yes, but laments finding the appearance poor due to the difficulty of controlling the fire of his pure yang constitution. The girl stares at him deeply irritated, doubting whether he is talking serious or just trying to show off shamelessly. She admits he is a prodigy, but makes it clear he should not ask her questions about alchemy, as she is not even an alchemist. The organized the situation curious, concluding that a person so strong living there without practicing alchemy surely hides some secret from the past. To break the heavy mood, he resolves to change the subject and offers sincere apologies for yesterday's jokes. Our main character hands over a bag as a sign of reconciliation, leaving the girl surprised by the unexpected gesture. The moment he gifts the girl the pills, the system immediately activates the return reward multiplied by 1,000 and by 1,300, granting him 7th grade items. Seeing the absurd returns generated by her, our protagonist happily concludes that it is very much worth interacting with and gifting this senior sister more times. That instant, his master's voice echoes from outside requesting the young man's presence. Step outside to greet him. The elder dispenses with formalities and reveals he has been following all his progress closely over the last few days. He warns that the next step in his journey will be accompanying Dugujan to the feared blood battle hall. The young man notices Dugujan's attitude and asks what happened, hearing from him that the region around the sect has been full of intruders and trouble. Dugujan explains that the demon race of the 10,000 Demons Forest is moving again, which renders impossible the original plan to take him there today. Our main character recalls that Sha Murong had already mentioned demonic entities trying to destroy the sect's great protective formation, demanding direct action from experts. Faced with the tense situation, Dugujan instructs him to follow him to the battle hall, while the young man reflects on how busy the sect has been. The boy says goodbye to his master, and the elder warns that he will enter secluded cultivation for a few months to refine pills, leaving Sister Tao responsible for helping him. Next, Byung-nan departs at full speed accompanied by his new tutor to begin the next stage of training. Observing the boy's departure, Taosubai praises her master's choice, calling the young man a rare 10,000-year prodigy, which makes the old man proud. The Blood Battle Hall carries a long history of tradition, existing practically since the founding of the St. Yuan demon sect. The disciples belonging to this hall have always carried the weight of leading the front lines in fighting external threats. It is precisely thanks to this relentless force and constant battles that the sect remained standing and feared for so long. Dugujan makes a point of highlighting that while the protective formation acts in defense, the battle hall is the blade tasked with attacking first. He states with pride that the objective is to annihilate enemies even before they can approach, and the young man understands the local philosophy. Curious, our main character questions if a demon sect really should act in such a noble way, asking if cheating and dishonesty would not be expected. After all, he remembers with a certain trauma that he was captured and brought there precisely by disciples of the sect itself. Dugujan recognizes that the location's reputation in the outside world is exactly that and does not try to deny the facts. He explains that isolation in the forest generated misunderstandings, and that neither humans nor demons understand the founding ancestors' true sacrifices. The young man reflects on this revelation, imagining that the founding of the sect in that isolated location must have a much greater purpose. Suddenly, Dugujan interrupts the conversation and warns that the two have finally arrived at their destination. The view before them reveals the impressive blood battle hall, filled with disciples training intensely. The environment overflows with energy and determination, with cultivators applying powerful strikes during exercises. Our main character observes the scene impressed, noting the overwhelming and focused aura of every person present at the location. At that moment, two prominent cultivators approach to receive Dugujan and his new companion. These are Xiao Wugi and Xingziyu, two elite disciples who immediately bow in respect to the master. Dugujan introduces Xiao Wugi, the senior brother occupying 9th place in the ranking of the Chosen, and Singzhu, second senior sister, while the boy politely greets them. The tutor then orders Wugi to accompany him to fetch the Wuji bell, leaving that surprised by the request. Du Yizhan questions if he is doubting his new personal disciple's talent, making Wugi back down and obey without questioning. As he passes by our main character, the senior brother lets out a snort of disdain, visibly jealous. The young man wonders if he committed any mistake, but Sister Singzhu reassures him, saying that is just the boy's difficult temperament. Suddenly, the charming senior sister approaches provocatively and mentions having heard about him possessing the legendary Pure Yang body. Whispering up close, she asks in a bold tone if he is also extraordinarily powerful in more intimate aspects, leaving the boy red as a pepper. Embarrassed, he complains about her asking such personal questions on their first meeting, while the lady laughs and keeps teasing. She makes a dramatic pose and jokes, saying it is a pity she is already a married woman, stating that he arrived too late. Our hero swallows hard before so much teasing and sensuality. Hearing the young man comment that she seems too young to be married, the lady reveals she has passed 200 years and married multiple times. With a dramatic expression, she tells that she is cursed and that all 9 of her previous husbands had tragic and early demises. The boy stands horrified by the revelation, concluding internally that this woman is basically a highly dangerous human black widow spider. Without giving him time to move away, she pulls him suddenly to herself in a very warm manner. Seeing the young man's embarrassment, she laughs and asks him not to be shy, saying she is only joking. She then reveals she is actually only 27 years old and remains a maiden, while the young man tries to hide his nervousness with a forced laugh. Our main character sighs inside, questioning if there is at least one true word in everything that comes out of that girl's mouth. That instant, a thundering golden light fills the hall with the arrival of Du Guzhan bringing the imposing Wuji bell. The master scolds the student for harassing the newcomer, and she finally moves away in obedience. The young man observes the massive artifact and asks what it serves for, discovering that it is ancestral war loot with the power of a Dao artifact. He explains that although it no longer serves for direct battles, the bell possesses mystical properties capable of measuring and testing a cultivator's hidden potential. Du Yuzhan places his hand on the boy's shoulder and warns that he needs to test his spiritual bones before deciding whether to teach him the legendary heaven and earth battle art. Du Guzhan orders the young man to use all his strength to strike the Wuji bell. Concentrating his fire energy, our protagonist prepares a devastating punch. With eyes glowing in flames, he strikes squarely on the artifact's surface. The impact echoes with a monumental thud, generating shockwaves that impress everyone present in the hall. The surrounding disciples stand completely open, mouthed at the intensity of the resonance produced by the boy. The sound wave spreads through all the region's mountains, creating a visible phenomenon in the skies. The reverberation is so thundering that it awakens a mysterious figure in a distant location. Upon opening its glowing eyes, the figure demonstrates having felt perfectly the emergence of this new force. The guy reflects on the emergence of the sovereign of the human race, commenting that his young lady would be extremely radiant with the news. However, he laments with a dark look, stating that it is already too late and that the world's fate is already sealed. The scene shifts to the 10,000 Demons Forest, where various demonic creatures and leaders begin to gather. The leader with purplish horns addresses his generals, asking if everyone also felt that disturbance in the air. He states with concern that the birth of the human emperor was announced and that great changes are about to shake the Shanwu continent. One of the generals mocks the situation, claiming the heavens are already sealed and humans have no way to turn the tables. They debate if the demonic ancestor also noticed the presence in question if he gave any direct order, but none of them has courage to disturb him. Seeing the foolish talk among his subordinates, the leader demands immediate silence with a severe order. He points out with seriousness that the emergence of the human emperor must never be ignored by the demon race. With that, he determines the sending of scouts to investigate as soon as possible the situation in the human plains. Back at the battle hall, our hero descends wrapped in flames and asks if the test result was sufficient. Du Guzhan hides his shock and says with a firm voice that it was merely passable, although inside he is completely surprised by the boy's absurd aptitude. Sister Ziyu takes the chance to jab at Brother Wugi, reminding that his result did not even come close to the boy's, but the young man tries to give a lame excuse. The master decides to end the tests and invites our main character to immediately begin learning the heaven and earth battle art. He explains that the essence of this art is not summarized in strikes or stances, but rather in cultivating a battle intent and a supreme mental state. The tutor raises his energy and warns that he will demonstrate the aura flow only once, demanding that he pay attention to every detail. An overwhelming aura in the shape of a flaming giant manifests around Du Guzhan with astounding power. Our main character stands perplexed before such presence and strength of that legendary technique. The gigantic projection delivers a devastating strike that illuminates the environment with overwhelming energy. The fist of flames advances with a force capable of tearing the skies. The released energy bursts into a colossal beam of light that rises to the clouds. After the impressive demonstration, Du Guzhan exhales excess heat and returns to his normal form. He asks if the boy managed to understand the essence of the strike. And our hero respectfully answers that fighting against heaven and earth means mastering all things. The master remains in silence for a moment, surprised by his new student's fast and profound answer. He praises the young man's progress, while the boy thinks to himself that he should have waited to reach core formation before trying. The tutor explains that this art demands real combat experience and that the more life or death battles he faces, the stronger he will become. Next, he hands the boy a manual of the Saint Yuan art, stating that technique will help raise his fighting power quickly. The boy questions if the technique has relation to Patriarch Saint Yuan, and hears from the master that the manual was created personally by the founder. He reveals that despite not being of celestial grade, the technique possesses astronomical potential if trained to the limit. The master orders that he remain there over the next few days, focused exclusively on mastering that new power, and the boy agrees without hesitation. Dugu Zhan observes the young man with pride and expectation about his future development. Before leaving, he also warns the two senior disciples not to bother the newcomer during the training period. The young man enters his personal cultivation chamber alone, carrying the sacred manual. Upon studying with text, he realizes that even with his high comprehension, assimilating a superior earth-grade technique demands an enormous effort. He discovers that the art is not of direct attack, but of spiritual Qi amplification, strengthening the meridians without draining the user's life. Impressed by Patriarch Saint Yuan's genius, our hero focuses totally on tempering his energy channels. Determined, the boy decides to test up to how many times he can multiply his own Qi. 3 days of intense cultivation of gas in the residence. Our hero remains at a deep trance while a devastating golden aura consumes the entire environment around him. He extends his finger and generates a small concentrated flame, utilizing a miniaturized version of the burning flame palm. The boy fires the spark against the room's floor to test the amplification level. The small spark generates an overwhelming explosion upon touching the ground, showing the absurd increase in power obtained after the 3 days of training. With an explosion of energy and a glowing seal that consumes the environment, the impact destroys part of the surrounding structure. Even with a defensive formation active at the location, the damage was huge, leaving our protagonist impressed with the released force. That is when powerful senior sister Zixuan appears floating with elegance on mystical branches, praising the frightening speed with which the young man understood the Saint Yuan art. Surprised by the sudden appearance and the cultivator's pressure, our protagonist tries to maintain composure and greets her formally. But Zixuan soon cuts the formality, reminding him that now that he passed the three elders' test, the way he calls her needs to change, forcing the boy to stammer a timid and embarrassed, "Master." Stating she already informed Elder Dugu, Zixuan warns that the boy is going with her right now. Before he can protest, magical vines capture and tie him instantly. Carried by force by his master's powers, he ends up falling awkwardly onto a bed. Looking around, our protagonist wonders where the saint dragged him this time. But the answer comes fast when Zixuan appears right above him, settling comfortably right on his lap. Staring at Zhao Miu up close, Zixuan directly asks if he knows the true reason for accepting him as a disciple. Maintaining the pressure and very close to his face, she repeats the question, demanding a sincere answer from the boy. Internally, our protagonist deduces she clearly desires the Crimson Yang power in his body, but finds it an exaggeration for her to play riddles about something so simple. Asking him to think carefully before answering, Zixuan leaves him intrigued, making him ponder if she is using the master title just as an excuse to keep him nearby under her control without raising suspicions. Deciding to play it safe, Jia Mu puts on a forced smile and answers diplomatically that she accepted him for recognizing his immense potential in cultivation. Staring at him directly, Zixuan confirms it is for that exact reason, and no other. Adding that he is a smart person and she does not need to explain anything more. She receives the boy's immediate guarantee that he will keep his mouth shut. Satisfied with the answer, Zixuan calmly gets up from her disciple's lap, who watches her with a mix of relief and caution. Right after, two ants with feline traits enter the room carrying food and tea, greeting the master. Zixuan then orders them to take the new disciple to the cave residence to arrange his quarters and provide a passage token. With a fast movement, Zixuan's legs appear in the scene as she withdraws from the room. Upon seeing again the two servants with feline traits who brought food and drink, our protagonist greets them cordially, receiving a cold greeting from one and a polite greeting from the other. Trying to break the ice, Zhao Mu comments that despite having shared an intense exchange last time, he still does not know the two senior sisters' names, making one of them grumble that she will not tell, while the other reminds that they will have plenty of time to coexist with the new junior brother. One introduces herself as Enlil and reveals her sister is named in Yuan, before asking the young man to be gentle when they consummate the relationship later. In a peculiar memory or warning, one of them grumbles that although they are puppet dolls, they also feel pain if their bodies are injured, calling him a bastard who does not know how to be gentle with women. With an amused smile on his face and his hand resting on his chin, our protagonist thinks to himself that the older sister is cold and arrogant, while the younger is sweet and fragile, finding the dynamic of the two quite interesting. Upon asking what they are holding, he discovers it is meat from a flood dragon of the deity transformation realm, with the essence blood already separated. The servants explain the prey was hunted by the Holy Sun in the 10,000 Demons forest, who distributed 2,000 quarters to the Purple Sky Cave, being perfect to nourish the young man's body, since the master has not consumed food in many years. Without losing time, Zhao Mu surprises the girls by delivering a fast direct strike. Indignant and with a blushing face, the servant complains and asks why he attacked out of nowhere, to which our protagonist answers with a touch of irony if he really needs that kind of food to nourish his body. Caught off guard by the reactions, our protagonist decides to act and ends up knocking the two servants awkwardly onto the bed. With a bold smile and confident look, Zhao Mu warns that now he will show them his true strength in a proper manner. The mood in the room heats up quickly, filled with glowing effects and muffled sounds while the intense interaction happens. Among the protests, one of them curses the boy demanding he be gentler, while the other admits embarrassed that she can still endure. Meanwhile, on her throne, Zixuan herself blushes intensely and loses composure, screaming frustrated and asking why he insists on inventing so many tricks instead of just being drained at once. Exhausted after the intense session, the two sisters rest on the bed, completely exhausted and out of breath. Adjusting his robes, our protagonist notes that he can no longer extract more rewards from the two, grumbling that the system really forces him to act like a scoundrel. Changing the subject, Zhao Mu wants to know what is up with the Holy Sun and why he treats the master so well, receiving the explanation that the young man probably likes her. The servant adds that his name is Jun Mo and he spends most of his time outside the sect, but always sends many good things when he returns. With a mock smile and crossing his arms, our protagonist soon defines the situation with a mocking thought, calling the so-called Holy Sun the saint's simping tool. Eating the meat with determination, our protagonist reflects that he will not let anyone else steal the saint's first 10,000-fold return. Shortly after, upon meeting Zixuan again, she comments that had finally come out, while the boy approaches the throne. Tossing a glowing item in his direction, the master coldly orders that he accept what belongs to him. Analyzing the treasures in the ring floating in his hands, Zhao Mu smiles and praises the sovereign's generosity. Giving a salute, he formally thanks her for the reward, hearing from her that it is only just payment for his effort. Zixuan then reveals that Niuo was already locked in the Thousand Demons Hall to serve punishment for at least 1 year, but admits she cannot bring down Long Tianxiang now, managing only to temporarily postpone his marriage alliance with Elder Lu Haikong's granddaughter. Surprised by the revelation, Zhao Mu questions in silence how it is possible that even the saint is unable to stand up to Long Tianxiang. Warning him that, like it or not, he will have to accept the situation for now, the master receives the immediate answer that the disciple understands. Inside, however, the young man clenches his fist with hatred and firmly swears that he will make a point of settling this account personally. Observing Zhao Mu's reaction from atop her throne, Zixuan maintains an analytical and mysterious gaze over the boy. Our protagonist, Zhao Mu, says goodbye to the saint in a good-humored way, telling her to get lost, but not to forget to visit him at least 3 times a month. With an extremely provocative look, the saint leaves a clear warning. He had better not dare perish before she empties him completely. With a confident smile on his face, Zhao Mu merely answers that he got the message, showing he is not easily intimidated by her teasing. He then begins to descend the cave staircases, leaving that place behind while planning his next steps. Stretching out in the open air, the young man thinks excitedly that getting the saint's first 10,000-fold return must not be far off. Now that he has finally leveled up and become a personal disciple, he decides it is time to choose a plot in the inner sect to build his own sacred territory. But while walking peacefully, a sudden shout orders him to stop immediately, catching our protagonist's attention. A quite eye-catching bull demon girl comes running in his direction and asks directly if he really was that Zhao Mu. Facing her, Zhao Mu gets an priceless expression, wondering mentally if these minotaurs were never going to give him a break. Without losing his posture, he confirms his identity and asks what relation she has with Nuao, the guy he faced before. The girl introduces herself as Nu Yulin and reveals, with a very angry face, that Nuao is none other than her older brother. Furious and already preparing her heavy weapons, she screams that he is to blame for her brother being locked in the Thousand Demons Hall, declaring war on the boy. With total calm, Zhao Mu simply raises his hand and asks if she does not know that private fights between sect disciples are punished with the death penalty. Caught off guard, the girl hesitates for a second, but soon pulls a document from her neckline to challenge him formally to a duel. She extends the challenge paper all confused, while our main character just stares at her with crossed arms, failing to understand anything from that bizarre situation. Zhao Mu then throws a bucket of cold water on her, explaining that being just an inner disciple, she does not have the right to directly challenge a personal disciple. Desperate and bursting into tears, the poor girl begins screaming that she does not care about rules, because he bullied her brother and needed to pay for it. Sighing at the opponent's childishness, the protagonist asks her to calm down and questions where he bullied her brother. He brings up the past, remembering it was Niuao who tried to use his status as an inner disciple to humiliate and oppress a mere outer disciple. Zhao Mu points his finger and says thousands of disciples saw everything, asking how she has the audacity to say he was the bully in the story. Realizing the blunder she made, Nu Yulin panics internally upon noting she came to demand satisfaction without even knowing the whole story. Completely embarrassed, she bows in a sincere apology, saying she did not know her brother had been such an idiot. Seeing that innocent reaction, Zhao Mu lets out a smirk from the side of his mouth, thinking that Heifer is actually quite naive. Concerned about fixing the mistake, she asks with a gentle look what Senior Zhao wants to forgive her brother's stupidity. Taking advantage of the situation, Zhao Mu makes a huge drama, saying he almost became a corpse and pretending he would be unable to charge anything from the new family. Desperate to redeem herself, the girl gets very close and guarantees she will do absolutely anything he asks to make up for what happened. Showing he makes every move count, the young man pulls out a scroll and a writing brush, reminding that words alone do not serve as proof. He extends the contract for her to sign right there, taking advantage of the girl's naivety to get what he wants. Without thinking twice, the poor thing takes the brush and signs the document in a huge rush, crying with emotion. Proud, she displays the contract with her signature and blood stamp, without noticing the protagonist's evil smile, celebrating how easy she is to fool. He then reveals the verdict: since he needs a maid to take care of daily tasks, she would have to follow him from now on as his servant. Shocked at the demand to become a mere servant, she hesitates, but Zhao Mu stares at her with an intimidating look and asks if she will refuse. Awkwardly, she explains that her Bolt Demon clan holds a very high status and that becoming a maid would bring immense shame upon her family. Seeing her resistance, the protagonist realizes he will need to use a different strategy and offer an irresistible temptation to convince her. He asks who she likes most in life, and before hearing the answer, already casually comments that he himself is a big fan of good eating. With a simple wave, he summons an absurdly gigantic amount of fresh meat right before the girl's wide eyes. With eyes shining in pure greed, she drools upon realizing that colossal pile is all made of flood dragon meat, a true delicacy. Exuding friendliness, Zhao Mu warns that if she accepts being his personal maid, that whole mountain of meat would be hers. The temptation is far too strong for the poor glutton, who immediately drops to her knees and swears eternal loyalty, promising to fulfill any desire of her new master. With a triumphant smirk, he holds her chin in a provocative way and asks what she should call him from that moment on. Totally red with embarrassment and completely surrendered, she finally stammers the magic word, calling him master. Satisfied with the result, Zhao Mu pats her head and tells her to put away the meat to help him set up his new cave residence. At that moment, the system notifies that by donating 2,000 pounds of flood dragon meat, he activated the multiplier return and obtained true dragon meat. Laughing happily with the legendary reward, Zhao Mu says he will go into isolated cultivation and leaves the territory preparation in the hands of his new, dedicated servant. The scene then focuses on the entrance to Zhao Mu's official new residence, which was properly established in the depths of a rocky mountain. Already settled and meditating amid a strong blue aura, the young man reflects that although he is strong, his current combat methods are still very limited. He analyzes his own energy and decides that mastering more magical battle arrays is the perfect path to elevate his power to the next level. He begins practical tests with the wind array, a basic technique that demands the precise engraving of 36 divine runes. The magical circle glows intensely on the cave floor, showing that he activation process with absolute mastery. Outside, faithful Niu Yulin appears carrying her giant maces, catching the attention of a mysterious pink-haired visitor who was passing by. Coming face to face with the horned girl, senior sister Shang asks, surprised if she is the daughter of the legendary Bull Demon King, and Yulin confirms, but makes a point of highlighting that now her official occupation is being Zhao Mu's personal maid. Upon hearing this, senior sister Shang crosses her arms with a disdainful expression, thinking to herself that that insolent kid definitely wastes no time and lives getting involved with women wherever he goes. High in ordinariance, she explains she brought the array scrolls Zhao Mu needed and asks Yulin to show the way to deliver them to the boy. However, while the two were walking toward the hero's quarters, they are suddenly surprised by a violent vibration and a deafening noise. A devastating gale erupts out of nowhere, making their clothes flutter while the wind roars furiously, signaling that the engraving of Zhao Mu's wind array was finally completed. Sensing the devastating impact even at a distance, senior sister Shang stands completely perplexed at the absurd fluctuations of divine runes emanating from the boy. The atmospheric pressure is so bizarre that the two girls are literally thrown backward, unable to resist the brutal force of that artificial storm. Without any control, both end up rolling and screaming across the floor in a somewhat embarrassing situation. With a thud, the two land awkwardly near Zhao Mu, who continued floating peacefully amid his magical barrier, looking at them without understanding anything. Observing the active wind array in his hand, the protagonist himself questions if the power of a basic wind technique really should be so destructive. Still recovering from the scare, senior sister Zhang points at him and asks shocked what kind of array he just conjured there, while he calmly recognizes her. Zhao Mu stands up and says she arrived at the perfect moment, as he noticed a rather unusual detail in the instruction book she herself had given him. He shows the open scroll and explains that although he followed every step to create a basic wind array, the result ended up transforming into a high-level wind blade array. Completely embarrassed by the situation, senior sister Zhang gestures desperately for him to stop talking for a second. With a blushing face and clutching her attire that was completely torn by the gale, She asks if he could not arrange spare clothing for her before they begin discussing theory. Zhao Mu hands over a folded set and apologizes awkwardly, claiming he was so focused on studies that he did not even notice her condition, but the girl counters irritated, swearing he did it on purpose. That instant, Zhao Mu's system is activated, notifying that by gifting 2 outfits, he triggered a 1,000-fold return and obtained 100 sets of first-class attack speed gear. However, upon seeing that the gear in question was actually extremely bold pink lace lingerie, the young man gets a sweat drop on his forehead, wondering if that would really be decent for battle. Already wearing improvised clothing that left plenty of skin showing, senior sister Shang sets embarrassment aside and asks to analyze his array disc personally. Upon examining the glowing barrier up close, she gets intrigued, confirming that the structure really belongs to a common wind array, which makes the destructive power inexplicable. Unable to reach a conclusion inside, she orders him to go to the outer area to test the technique again right before her eyes. Already outside, Zhao Mu concentrates, releasing a formidable energy that makes his long hair float in the air. With a quick command, he activates the runic circle, releasing once more an absurdly powerful gust of wind that rips through the surrounding ground. Speechless at the spectacle of power, senior sister Shang asks how he managed to do that, and he merely answers with total naturalness that he followed the manual to the letter. Decided to test the young man's limits, she suggests moving on to the fire array, instructing that he just pay attention and copy exactly every movement she makes. Senior sister Shang begins channeling her own energy, condensing a runic fire array of vibrant orange color in her hand. With a firm movement, she fires a burning blast against the rocks, demonstrating the classic operation of the runic skill. Next, she looks at the protagonist and tells him to try too, while Zhao Mu creates without the slightest effort a perfect and colossal replica of the same fire array. Channeling an absurd amount of elemental power, the hero makes the flames in his hand take off in an intensity never seen before. Upon firing the attack, he creates a true devastating torrent of flames that incinerates everything in sight, melting the ground with extreme ease. Upon witnessing that absurd and overwhelming demonstration of destructive power, senior sister Shang gets a sweaty face and stands completely speechless. Zhao Mu innocently asks why she stares at him that way, and the girl answers seriously that since the problem is not with the runic arrays, the problem can only be himself. She begins to theorize mentally if his Crimson Yang sacred body would also have the capacity to amplify fire spells, but soon dismisses the idea, remembering that the wind technique from earlier had no relation to the Yang element. Seeking practical answers, she grabs his arm abruptly, causing her improvised clothing to slide even further and leaving our protagonist completely embarrassed by such intimacy. Ignoring his timid reaction, she orders him to stop foolishness and draw the divine runes directly on her skin, so that she can feel the differences in energy flow directly. With his finger wrapped in a small runic flame, Zhao Mu gets super awkward and questions if such an intimate service should really be done for free. Pressured by her rush, he begins tracing the burning lines of the divine runes on the senior sister's soft skin, concentrating to the maximum so as not to make a mistake. As soon as the runic touch takes effect, energy waves begin to resonate through the girl's body, making her tremble before the intense and mysterious heat of that technique. Zhao Mu maintains absolute focus, knowing that any slip in runic power channeling could cause a serious accident right there. The sensation of the runic flow is so intense and overwhelming that senior sister Shang ends up arching her back, letting out an involuntary groan that echoes through the entire cave. Red as a beet, Zhao Mu finishes the process and, scratching his cheek nervously, asks if she managed to detect what the mystery behind his technique was. Still breathless and visibly shaken by the experience, she answers that the divine runes he condenses and engraves are much larger and thicker than hers. The young man widens his eyes and gets totally flustered, questioning if she was not making double entendre jokes with him at a moment like that. Paying no mind to his timidity, she explains that divine runes work like an energy channeler. The thicker and more robust they are, the greater the stored and released power will be. She theorizes that this must be linked to his physical constitution, while Zhao Mu internally realizes that the true reason is his human emperor lineage, which possesses perfect compatibility with the world's laws. Cutting through the pin's mood, cute Yulin appears with a friendly smile, suggesting they take a break to rest and eat something tasty after so much effort. Zhao Yu agrees excitedly, but senior sister Shang narrows her eyes with a hint of jealousy upon hearing the demon girl address him so intimately. She decides to alert him, reminding that he already sent the Bull Demon King's son to the Thousand Demons Hall and now took his daughter as a servant, warning that their father would definitely come demand satisfaction to the death. The hero tries to reassure her, saying he knows his own limits, but the girl makes a pouting face and calls him chief pervert, remembering the embarrassing state he left her in during the rune engraving. But all that runic tension and family concerns soon vanish when a true feast of juicy roasted meats is served, leaving everyone ready to recover energy. The next day, sweet Yulin appears wearing an adorable housemaid attire and timidly announces she cooked all the meat he had given her. Take in the first bite, senior sister Shang is amazed and wonders what kind of divine meat that is, containing such absurd spiritual energy and vitality. The young man explains it is flood dragon meat from the deity transformation realm, originally gifted to the saint, but which ended up benefiting him. Impressed and wanting to tease him, senior sister Zhang comments that it is a pity he is not a woman, because then he would have high chances of becoming the next saint. She even jokingly suggests he take a gender swap pill, making poor Zhao Mu spit out his own drink from pure shock and embarrassment. Seeing his hilarious reaction, senior sister Zhang decides to stop teasing him for a moment and reveals she has one more important message to give him. She then sets on the table a shiny and quite plump bag, stuffed with valuable items for the protagonist's cultivation. The girl reveals her master knows how difficult it is to progress in cultivation and therefore sent a few billion spirit stones to help him for now. Completely overcome with gratitude, the hero does not hesitate to pull her into a tight hug, leaving senior sister Zhang totally awkward and blushing at such proximity. While hugging her, Zhao Mu thoughtfully comments that it has been a while since he saw the Sect masters, asking if they have been very busy lately. Still composing her posture, the girl explains that the leaders and elders entered the 10,000 Demons mountain range due to a very complicated situation over there. The young man immediately realizes the gravity of the matter, noting that mobilizing so many elders together means the Saint Yuan demon sect is far from having peace. Realizing Mu turns serious, senior sister Sham decides it is time to leave to consolidate her own cultivation, politely declining the rest of the feast. She gives a light ear pull to him, warning that if he keeps making trouble with the daughters of grand demons, even the masters would have difficulty protecting him. Zhao Mu merely agrees with a nervous laugh and says a friendly goodbye to the senior sister, waving as she returns to her own quarters. With senior sister Sean's departure, dedicated Yulin begins cleaning the table mess with all the speed of a true housekeeper. The young man gives a long sigh and stretches out, commenting aloud that his shoulders are quite tense from spending so much time studying arrays. Without losing time, the faithful servant runs to position herself behind him and begins massaging her master's shoulders with all the affection and dedication in the world. Satisfied with the pampering, Zhao Mu looks sideways at her and asks if she does not feel wronged or humiliated for having to serve him that way. With total sincerity, she answers that as long as he forgives her older brother's mistakes, she would be willing to perform absolutely any task. She even adds that the fact that he shared so much precious dragon meat proves he does not see her as just a common servant, but truly cares about her. Satisfied with such loyalty and devotion, the young man smiles tenderly and strokes his dear helper's face, praising her attitude. As a reward for her fidelity, he materializes a bag full of spirit stones and delivers it directly into the young woman's hand. Seeing that unexpected and valuable gift, Yulin's eyes fill with tears of pure emotion and deep gratitude for her lord. She hugs him tightly, declaring he is the best master of all, while he gently tries to calm her down so she does not smudge her makeup crying. That instant, Zhao Mu's system beeps, revealing that the donation of 3.8 billion spirit stones triggered the 100-fold multiplier, yielding 380 billion to the hero. Happy with the runic fortune he just secured, he warns Yulin he will isolate himself to achieve a cultivation breakthrough and asks her to clean the cave. The girl stands shocked upon realizing he is already about to break the level bottleneck again and rushes to carry out the orders with total readiness. With a playful motivating pat, Zhao Mu guarantees his evolution speed is far beyond what any ordinary person could even imagine. He enters the deep meditation chamber and orders the system to release all spirit stones to begin the immediate breakthrough process. However, looking at his hand, he notices only a few fragments floating and questions the system about where his promised 380 billion stones went. The system panel appears and explains that the quantity was far too absurd for common inventory, so they were automatically converted into supreme-level spirit stones. Holding a single ultra-concentrated gem, the young man complains about the bizarre conversion rate, but the system guarantees the total spiritual energy remains exactly the same. Comforted by the technical explanation, he positions himself in the room's center and begins absorbing the colossal energy emanating from the supreme gems around him. A monstrous torrent of bluish runic energy wraps around his body, beginning the process of strengthening and evolving his cultivation cells. Meanwhile, outside, poor Yulin walks back and forth with a food tray, worried whether she should interrupt him to feed him. Suddenly, an offsetting, blinding beam of light explodes from inside the meditation quarters, making the entire cave tremble violently. The shockwave is so overwhelming that it rips the rustic door off the place and throws the demon girl far, tearing part of her clothes once again with the impact. Amid the dense smoke generated by the energy explosion, an imposing silhouette begins to rise slowly, revealing the training's success. The smoke cleared to reveal the protagonist with an incredibly defined physique and overflowing with power, smiling satisfied with the Supreme Stone's effects. Enchanted and blushing at her master's striking presence, Yulin celebrates, shocked to note he managed to advance directly to the 9th level of Foundation establishment. However, the system panel soon alerts that his reserves are completely drained, making Zhao Mu realize he needs to obtain more cultivation stones urgently. He dresses quickly and asks if the sect usually distributes regular monthly resources to inner sect disciples. With the girl's confirmation, he plans to use his personal disciple token to withdraw his share of official resources and temporarily solve his lack of materials. Zhao Mu takes off toward the disciples' courtyard wrapped in speed flames, while Yulin says goodbye, promising to have dinner ready for when he returns. During the flight, the young man consumes a special 7th grade wind walking pill, ideal to drastically boost his speed and affinity with the wind element. He swallows the runic medicine without hesitation, feeling his body's energy channels react instantly to the substance's effect. In a matter of seconds, a swift green aura wraps around him completely, launching him through the skies like a true runic meteor of wind. Flying at high speed, the hero remembers that Senior Sister Lu's residence is right nearby and decides it would be a great idea to make a quick visit along the way. He decelerates upon spotting the complex of courtyards and dwellings below him, but something uncommon immediately catches his attention down there. Coming face to face with Senior Sister Lu's residence, Zhao Mu notices several cultivators of other races floating around the property, acting as guards. Intrigued by that scene, the hero reflects that Senior Sister Lu was placed under house arrest, questioning if that would be punishment from Lu Haikong or revenge from Long Tiangxiang. Analyzing the group's strength with attention, he detects that there are over 50 demonic cultivators guarding the place, and worse, all of them are in the powerful core formation realm. Aware of his current limitations, the young man breaks into a cold sweat, admitting that with his current power level, it would be true suicide to try to face so many core formation level enemies at once. With no other viable alternative at the moment, he decides to use his enhanced speed and beats a rapid retreat, vanishing through the skies unnoticed. As he moves away, Zhao Mu looks sideways determined, asking mentally for Senior Sister Lu to hold firm for a few more days. Inside the quarters, Senior Sister Lu Chu was looking melancholically out the window, completely oblivious to her young senior's silent presence. Sad with her forced confinement, she sighs hopelessly, while the protagonist swears to himself that he will come rescue her as soon as he reaches the core formation realm. Diverting his original path, the young man takes off toward the bustling disciples' courtyard to proceed with his original plan. He lands softly at the complex entrance, dissipating the green wind energy that wrapped around his combat boots. Zhao Wu walks peacefully through the place, noting that the courtyard is exceptionally packed with disciples from the most diverse backgrounds. Passing through the crowd, he overhears some demonic cultivators complaining about their bad luck for having lost valuable treasures during a recent battle. Another demon comments that demonic beast activity has grown increasingly intense and that they can barely keep up with the sect's missions. Zhao Mu reflects on what he heard, realizing that the crisis in the 10,000 Demons Forest has already begun to directly affect the lives of common sect disciples. But his thoughts are abruptly interrupted when an arrogant shout orders him to get the hell out of there immediately. Without showing any sign of panic or surprise, our main character just stops and turns around with an expression of pure boredom to see who was bothering him. A muscular demon accompanied by a snake woman mocks the young man, ironically calling him a grand figure, for visiting the common disciples' courtyard. The snake woman approaches with a malicious smile and insinuates that the handsome young man only rose in rank selling his own body, offering spirit stones in exchange for a night with him. The surrounding demons begin to laugh out loud, mocking that the human boy will soon start crying or run to complain to the elders of his race. With a cold and penetrating look that makes the laughter fade bit by bit, Zhao Mu simply asks if they have finished talking nonsense. In the blink of an eye, the protagonist releases a monstrous and overwhelming red aura, generating a shockwave that makes the ground tremble and frightens the provokers. Wrapped in pure killing intent, the young man warns with a dark voice that if they do not want to perish painfully, they must get out of his sight right now. Offended by the boy's audacity, the snake woman and the giant demon fume furiously, remembering that he dared offend young Master Long Tiangxiang. Zhao Mu lets out a sarcastic smirk, realizing immediately that the three idiots there actually are nothing more than mere henchmen of Long Tiangxiang. Without hesitating, the hero extends his hand provocatively and warns that his hands were already itching for a good fight anyway. A green barrier of runic energy closes around the combat group, isolating them from the rest of the disciples who are watching the commotion. Exuding self-confidence, the protagonist invites the three opponents to show what these little demons are really capable of doing. Furious for being underrated, the three core formation warriors shout that a mere foundation establishment cultivator provoking three of them is the same as seeking his own demise. Without losing time, the snake woman opens her mouth in a grotesque and bizarre way, stretching out a long and sharp tongue like a spear toward the young man. The tongue whips swiftly through the air, but Zhao Mu dodges with mastery, mocking that demonic cultivators are nothing more than useless trash. With a superhuman reflex, our protagonist simply catches the creature's stretched tongue with his bare hand, interrupting the attack on the spot. He channels his purplish runic power instantly, activating the purple lightning entanglement technique directly through the captured member. A devastating electrical discharge of purple lightning travels through the opponent's tongue, brutally electrocuting her and making her scream in pure agony. The onlookers stand perplexed, asking themselves how the young man manages to manifest such a colossal difference in power in a technique that many there also master. Feeling her pride wounded and still under the effect of the runic shocks, the snake woman roars furiously for the human brat not to think so highly of himself. Seized by hatred, she propels herself with full force and prepares a devastating strike using her giant snake tail. The attack comes with full force in a brutal tail whip capable of shattering the rustic arena floor. But demonstrating incredible agility, Zhao Mu simply leaps into the air, dodging the colossal tail with ease. The crowd watches apprehensively, commenting that a strike like that would crush any ordinary cultivator, claiming that the hero would finally be defeated. However, defying all expectations, Zhao Mu blocks the tail attack directly with his left arm, generating a metallic collision sound. Demonstrating absurd physical strength that rivals that of the demons themselves, he holds the heavy tail without even stepping back an inch. With a formidable runic push, the young man throws the giant member aside, completely breaking the enemy's combat posture. The demons watching the fight stand with jaws dropped, breaking into a cold sweat as they question if Zhao Mu really is just a human race cultivator. Fallen on the floor and humiliated by the overwhelming defeat, the snake woman desperately orders her 2 allies to eliminate the young man without caring about consequences. With eyes red with pure bloodlust, she guarantees she will take full responsibility for any punishment the sect decides to apply. Answering their allies' blood call, the 2 demonic warriors conjure high-level talismans and activate the terrible, Grand Slaughter Array. Scarlet smoke and terrifying demonic energy in the shape of a skull erupt from the ground, covering the entire battlefield. Before such a magical threat, Zhao Mu maintains absolute calm, admitting that perhaps it is time to start fighting a bit more seriously. He begins concentrating the golden flames of the Crimson Yang sacred body directly in his right hand, raising the arena temperature to extreme levels. With a devastating punch, he fires a colossal blast of fire against the red slaughter energy, generating an epic clash of elemental powers that makes the whole runic barrier vibrate. Upon seeing the flames glowing intensely, Long Tiansheng's henchmen stand incredulous upon realizing he managed to block the powerful charge of the magical array with extreme ease. With a confident smile, Zhao Mu proposes doubling the stakes and channels his runic energy to summon 2 colossal heads of flaming fire lions in their direction. Realizing the impending catastrophe, Elder Fai appears running desperate and shouts at the top of his lungs for the young man not to deliver a fatal strike against the disciples. However, the protagonist nearly stares at him with a cold look of disdain, whispering coldly that it was already too late for any clemency. With an apocalyptic explosion of golden flames, the 3 henchmen are swallowed by the violent fire, letting out cries of agony before being reduced to ashes. When the smoke finally clears, leaving only dust and bones of the adversaries, Elder Fai stares at the scene horrified, scolding Zhao Mu for what he just did. Consumed by fury, the elder emanates a strong red aura and fumes that 3 inner disciples died by his fault, swearing the young man will pay dearly for it. Showing not the slightest concern, the hero gestures mockingly and retorts, questioning what the problem would be with having eliminated criminals who tried to take his life. Furious at the boy's audacity, Elder Fei wraps his hand in blue energy and declares that since the protagonist attacked first, things would not come cheap. The old Nam fires a brutal wind punch in his direction, screaming that the young human could not blame him for what would come next. Zhao Mu reacts immediately, activating his classic, Purple Lightning Entanglement, technique to contain the elder's heavy attack. The elder's fist and Zhao Mu's electrified defense collide violently, generating purple sparks and a shockwave that cracks the stone floor. Sensing the boy for resistance, the old man forces the strike even more and mocks, asking if he really thought a fake technique like that would be enough to stop him. With an agile movement, Zhao Mu steps back unhurt, but notices concerned that his lightning strike did not make the slightest effect on the old man, questioning in what runic realm he would be. The elder's giant energy hand advances again against him with frightening speed, leaving the protagonist on high alert. Clicking his tongue annoyed, the young hero prepares to fight serious, lighting his runic body's flames to respond in kind to the attack. However, an opposing female voice cuts through the air ordering the 2 to stop that madness immediately, echoing through the whole combat courtyard. The in-order knights freeze their positions on the spot, while a beautiful woman with long silver hair walks calmly with her sword in hand. With an intimidating posture, the newcomer stares at the elder coldly and asks if he has no shame in picking on younger cultivators. Recognizing her, the old man begins breaking into a cold panic sweat and stammers calling her Director Han, leaving Zhao Mu quite intrigued with that woman's reputation. Trying to clear his record quickly, Elder Fai points at the hero and accuses Zhao Mu of being a lunatic who just murdered 3 inner disciples in cold blood. Director Enron turns her penetrating and enigmatic gaze in Zhao Mu's direction, letting out a questioning murmur while assessing him from head to toe. Sensing the overwhelming pressure of her presence, the protagonist swallows hard and tries to maintain composure before that powerful warrior. Hamrong approaches the young man and asks directly if he is that Zhao Mu, and the young man confirms his identity with all possible politeness. Displaying his charming, rustic eloquence, he asks with a smile if the older sister would be the new administrator of that inner disciples' courtyard. Upon being called older sister, the director blushes slightly and rolls her eyes, thinking he really has a sharp tongue like rumors say and does not seem like someone simple to handle. She introduces herself formally as Han Rong, a legacy disciple under the second elder's command who currently acts as temporary director of the courtyard. In a serious tone, she directly questions why he delivered such a brutal finishing blow against his own sect companions. Zhao Mu defends himself calmly, explaining that the 3 henchmen broke rules first by trying to use forbidden 6th-grade slaughter talismans to take his life. He have the actives to free himself, defense to protect himself, and that all disciples present in the courtyard could testify in his favor. Other brave disciples step forward and confirm the hero's version, explaining that if the destruction talisman had detonated, the entire courtyard would have been reduced to dust. Elder Fei tries to yell that it is all a lie, but Han Rong cuts him off coldly, warning she has her own methods to judge the situation clearly. She then materializes a glowing golden mirror with the yin-yang symbol, revealing it to be a powerful magical surveillance artifact. The artifact begins projecting in the air holographic images of everything that happened moments earlier in the courtyard. The recording clearly shows the cowardly ambush set up by Long Tianxiang's henchmen against the hero, leaving no room for doubt. Seeing the irrefutable proof of his lie displayed to everyone, Elder Fei begins trembling with nervousness and stammers without knowing how to justify himself. Zhao Mu smiles mentally, admiring the fact that the administrator possesses such a useful resource to expose his accusers on the spot. Han Rong praises the protagonist's impressive strength for eliminating 3 core formation cultivators being only at Foundation establishment, but he retorts modestly. Knowing his innocence was proven, Zhao Mu asks with a friendly tone if he is already cleared to leave to handle his matters. The director considers, agreeing that Wang Shi's group committed the mistake first, but notes that the demise of 3 inner disciples is still too serious a matter to be ignored. She orders all involved to accompany her to the law enforcement hall to clarify the bureaucratic details of the case, and the students obey immediately. Next, she dismisses Elder Fei, telling him to stay behind and take sole responsibility for repairing the damage caused to the courtyard. Han Rong summons her flying sword and takes off into the skies, ordering the group to follow her closely toward the law enforcement hall. Grinding his teeth in pure rage at being left behind, Elder Fei wonders indignantly why that demon woman would help a mere human cultivator. During the aerial journey, disciples comment impressed on how Senior Han is fair and completely free of prejudice between the human and demonic races. Another student highlights that besides being owner of stunning beauty, she is absurdly strong, having reached 3rd place in the inner ranking in the late nascent soul level. Upon hearing about her powers, Zhao Mu stands surprised and compares mentally, remembering that arrogant Long Tianxiang holds only 5th position in the same ranking. Looking at the silver senior sister's back, the young man decides it is better to maintain respect and not provoke Han Rong in any way for now. A short time later, the group finally arrives at the entrance of the Intersex Imposing and Dark Law Enforcement Hall. The place's demonic guards bow in deep respect to welcome the illustrious older sister, who merely passes straight through with a serious nod. After flying to the top of the mountain, Senior Han Rong guides Zhao Mu and the other disciples inside the imposing and dark law enforcement hall. But as soon as they cross the main gates, a violent thud echoes through the hall, making the hero look back startled. In a fast, silent movement, several red magical seals cut through the air, activating a powerful confinement trap around them. The young man suddenly finds himself trapped in a dark, suffocating dimension, wrapped in a dense and oppressive malevolent energy fog. The place's spiritual pressure is so overwhelming that poor Zhao Mu begins coughing up blood, realizing immediately the gravity of the situation. Completely weakened by the runic barrier, he drops to his knees on the damp floor, looking with difficulty at Senior Han Rong. Seeing the cynical and victorious smile stamped on the girl's face, the protagonist realizes with bitterness that he fell into a meticulously planned trap. From the deep darkness behind the director, dozens of red, sinister eyes begin glowing amid macabre giggles. Wiping blood from his mouth, Zhao Mu comments that her plan was brilliant, deducing that the 3 henchmen he eliminated were just disposable pawns used as bait. Han Rong laughs sadistically and warns that he does not need to lament, guaranteeing that even if he had not challenged them, she would find another way to drag him there. She reveals that actually, the Long family's intention was only to lock him up for some time so Long Tianxiang could marry the young woman from the Lu family without interference. Coughing up a bit more blood, the young man inquires that if the Long family did not want his end, who after all would be behind that execution order. Giving a mocking chuckle, the villain tells him to stop trying to guess, revealing cruelly that the person who truly desires his end stands right before his eyes. Zhao Mu stands shocked at the revelation, while Han Rong assumes a scary expression and warns that he has only himself to blame for his own fate. She holds his chin firmly and whispers with hatred that a mere worm of the human race has no right to possess so much runic talent, guaranteeing she needs to eliminate him before he turns into a threat to demons. But the hero does not give up easily and, with bloodshot eyes, warns that she can abandon hope if she thinks she will manage to defeat him so easily. He gathers the rest of his strength and fires the burning flame palm technique, generating an explosion of flames to try to break the confinement. Taking advantage of the distraction caused by the fire, the young man dodges quickly toward a deep fissure, aware that that would be his only chance to escape. Han Rong merely observes his escape with disdain, mocking the audacity of that insignificant ant who dared resist. When to cold wave, she channels a macabre torrent of purplish shadow energy directly from her palm. Several gigantic tentacles of pure darkness pursue the hero down the abyss, leaving him completely cornered during the freefall. The black magic blast hits the young man squarely, releasing a catastrophic explosion that resonates through all the stone walls. Zhao Mu is violently swallowed by the destructive shadow energy, screaming in pain as he plunges toward the bottom of the abyss. Senior Enron watches the smoke go down and coldly orders that the darkness finish swallowing its prey once and for all. Plunging without any control toward absolute pitch black, the young man merely closes his eyes and prepares for the worst. Up at the top, one of the guards asks if she should not go down to guarantee the boy's end once and for all. But the director merely smiles with evil, guaranteeing that the bottom of that abyss is a point of no return and that there is not the slightest possibility of survival for him. Zhao Mu continues falling into the deep darkness of the Sect's dungeon for a long time, until finally colliding against the rocky ground. He crashes violently against the wall, letting out a dry, painful cough while trying to catch his breath after the impact. Rising with extreme difficulty, the young man swears with hatred that as long as he manages to walk out alive from that cursed dungeon, he will make that woman pay dearly for the rest of her life. He lights a small flame in his hand to illuminate the location and wonders how she had the audacity to attack him, without fearing the fury of his masters or the saint herself. Suddenly, a scary metallic noise of dragging chains echoes through the shadows, leaving the protagonist in a state of high alert. 3 monstrous silhouettes of gigantic demonic beasts with glowing red eyes emerge slowly from the dark. Upon noticing the imprisoned monsters, Zhao Mu lets out a sarcastic smirk from the corner of his mouth upon understanding perfectly Senior Hanrong's play. He realizes that the villain's intention was to use the claws of the trapped beasts to tear him apart, freeing herself from any suspicion or direct accusation of murder. Upon spotting the young man, the monsters begin drooling with hunger, commenting on how such a young and delicate human should be incredibly tasty. Zhao Mu analyzes the creature's aura and swallows hard upon noting they are 3 grand demons at the nascent soul level, laughing nervously for Hanrong having underestimated him so much. The boar demon suggests they unite their forces to devour the young man and then escape from there to hunt more humans until satisfied. But the alligator monster refuses the idea, terrified, remembering that the boy carries the smell of that demonic phoenix and that if they flee, they will run into her. The 3 demons begin trembling just remembering the suffering they went through when they were defeated and sealed by that ruthless woman in the past. Zhao Mu listens to the conversation and connects the dots, deducing that Hanrong belongs to the feared Phoenix clan, which would explain her audacity to ignore the saint's threats. While the monsters argued whether they should eat him raw or cooked, the hero realizes that the psychological trauma left by Hanrong could be his greatest advantage to survive inside there. With all the nerve in the world, he undoes his combat stance and greets the 3 giant monsters with extreme politeness, calling them respectable seniors. Surprised by the boy's audacity, the bear demon praises the young human's courage and politeness, saying he would not mind listening to what he has to say before devouring him. With a confident and enigmatic smile, Zhao Mu asks directly if they are really decided to eat him anyway. He argues firmly that even if they devour him inside there, they will remain trapped forever in the dark depths of that dungeon without ever seeing the light of day. Next, he proposes an audacious deal. If they spare him, he will help them defeat Hanrong and guarantee the definitive freedom of all of them. The 3 grand demons exchange silent glances for a few seconds, completely perplexed with the absurd proposal of that mere human. The alligator monster lets out a loud, mocking laugh, questioning where a weak foundation establishment cultivator got the courage to say such nonsense. The other 2 demons agree, remembering that even at the peak of their powers they were no match for Hanrong, questioning how a brat like him would be capable of performing such a feat. Our protagonist begins questioning with 3 grand demons, asking for what reason someone would send 3 nascent soul stage experts to deal with a mere foundation establishment stage junior like him. One of the demons recognizes that his constitution and lineage aura are quite different from those of an ordinary human, and admits that mysterious presence is something they cannot even fully comprehend. Without dragging it out further, the boy asks the 3 to pay close attention and decides to demonstrate what he really has to offer. That needs to completely stand completely shocked, feeling the power that begins emanating from the young man's hand. It is the legendary human emperor lineage, an extremely rare and terrifying energy. With that concentrated drop of blood, the protagonist asks provocatively if that would not be enough for them to face Hanrong together. The bear demon tries to act tough and asks if the young man is not afraid of being sliced and devoured by them right there. But our main character remains calm and counters, saying that if he passes away, they will gain no benefit, and in the end who will profit from this whole story is Hanrong herself. The boar demon gets irritated with the speech and warns his companions not to fall for the boy's talk. After all, no matter how much talent he has, he is still just a foundation establishment stage cultivator. He insists that ending the young man guarantees at least a reinforced meal, and warns that if they do not act soon, they will not even survive that night. Upon realizing the negotiation seems to have failed, the protagonist prepares his aura for combat. Except that before the boar can do anything, the frog demon leaps on top of him and immobilizes him on the ground without thinking twice. The boar feels furiously asking why the frog is stepping on him, but his companion merely tells him to shut his mouth immediately. Turning to the young man, the frog explains that just a trace of that lineage is not enough to convince them, so he will need to demonstrate even more strength if he wants their help. When intimidated, our protagonist makes a respectful salute and asks for just a single day's time from the three seniors. Next, he pulls out a special cultivation pill and swallows it quickly. Sitting in a lotus position, a devastating golden aura deploys around him to begin the level advancement. The demons stand without understanding anything, seeing the boy enter closed cultivation right in front of them, noting it has not been long since he reached the 9th level of foundation establishment. The frog decides to give this vote of confidence, saying that one day passes fast and that they can just observe in silence for now. The young man then releases all his spiritual energy and forces the breaking of his own limits. The boar gets scared at the speed and thinks the boy already managed to advance to the 10th level, but the frog realizes something much greater is happening. With spirits still flowing and shattering around, the protagonist is trying to leap straight to the core formation stage. Our main character knows that if he manages to reach this new stage, combined with his human emperor lineage, he will be capable of defeating even a nascent soul expert. The energy continues rising violently, lacking only one more small push for consolidation. But suddenly an unforeseen problem arises. The boy realizes the amount of spirit stones he brought will not be sufficient. With the core formation almost concluded, he knows that failing for lack of spiritual ki would cause gigantic harm to his cultivation. Realizing the young man's desperation, the frog demon decides to intervene, warning him not to panic because they will help. Without hesitating, the three grand demons unite their forces and channel a huge amount of spiritual energy directly into the protagonist. The integration of power generates a gigantic aura explosion that illuminates the entire place. When the dust clears, the frog observes the energy stabilizing and stands speechless with the result. He looks astonished and confirms there are no doubts about the unbelievable feat he just witnessed. The protagonist now boasts the legendary Red Sun Golden Core, a supreme type of core where a single unit surpasses the power of 10 ordinary golden cores. The boar and the bear get terrified, realizing they helped release a monster, fearing being punished in the future if the boy brings disgrace to the demon race. However, the frog suppresses that thought and remembers that although they care about demons, their own race never favored them, and who hurt them most in the past were their own kind. He concludes with determination that that is the perfect moment for them to choose a new destiny. Without thinking twice, the three demons bow deeply before the boy and greet him as their new boss, leaving the young man surprised at the sudden attitude. Internally, our main character gives a smile of satisfaction seeing that the three are smart and know very well how to read the situation. Maintaining a leader's posture, the protagonist asks them to rise, saying he understands that they only wish to survive. Even so, he knows he needs to make a small test to guarantee the group's loyalty. With unmatched nerve, he pretends his newly reached cultivation base is unstable and asks his new subordinates to lend him some hidden treasures they have stored. The bear and the boar stand completely perplexed without knowing how to react to such a direct request. But the frog, wanting to show service, steps in on them and demands they deliver everything of value they have stashed to offer to the new boss. Seeing their helpful reaction, the protagonist gets amused and waits to see what will come. The boar is the first to deliver the profound spirit blood amber, a rare treasure obtained in the depths of the forest that drastically increases lineage potential. Next, the bear offers the 5th grade fire spirit fruit, a valuable item capable of considerably raising the quality of the fire spiritual root. Finally, the frog presents a poisonous stinger bathed in frog venom for 3 centuries, whose toxin is so brutal it can eliminate even a nascent soul stage cultivator with a simple scratch. Analyzing the items floating in front of him, our hero recognizes that all of them are extremely rare and valuable treasures. To everyone's surprise, he pushes the treasures back and tells them to keep them, revealing that it was all just a test to measure the group's fidelity. Impressed with the boss's generosity, the 3 demons swear eternal loyalty, promising to serve him faithfully until death. That was exactly our main character's plan. Immediately the system screen activates, notifying that by gifting the items he activated rewards multiplied by thousands of times, making the young man give that chuckle of someone who calculated everything from the beginning. That same second, the system delivers the multiplied rewards: the ancestral god blood amber, the 8th grade profound fire fruit, and the ghost venom needle, an artifact also of 8th grade. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the purple sky cave abode. In a thermal water bath, the saint appears outraged, letting out a scream of pure indignation. Irritated, the woman complains about Han Rong's nerve for having the audacity to mess with her person specifically. Beside the pool, an elderly servant asks the saint to calm her anger and think carefully. The elderly woman, known as Granny Changsho, considers that this story is very strange and that the true mastermind must be another person. The saint recognizes that the old woman is referring to Long Tianxiang, but insists that things are not so simple. She explains that she knows Han Rong very well and knows her hatred for humans borders on madness, having already executed countless prodigies of the human race. Rising from the water, the saint states categorically that if she stands by with arms crossed doing nothing, Zhao Mu will certainly end up dead. Granny Chicho reflecting silence if it is really worth risking so much just for the blood yin yang pills that Zhao Mu can supply. She fears that picking a fight with the Phoenix clan will make the saint's future path extremely difficult and dangerous. However, the young woman counters, saying that if they do not fight now, the future will be even more complicated. While getting dressed, The saint questions the servant if she still has not noticed the context, asking why an incident like this would happen right when Zhao Mu was summoned by the Holy Land. Upon hearing this, Prince Changsho stands shocked upon deducing if all of this is not just a trial planned by the Empress herself. Adjusting their clothes, the saint explains that nothing happening in the demon sect escapes the Empress's eyes, so the incident had at least her tacit approval. She emphasizes that whether it is Long Tianxiong, Hanrong Zhao Mu, or herself, absolutely everyone inside the sect is nothing more than pieces on their master's chessboard. Granny Changsho stands admired seeing how the little girl who used to cry in the past grew so much, while the saint comments that only the old woman would have the courage to talk to her that way. Sighing, the servant decides to withdraw, saying she is already too old to keep up with the young people's pace and prefers to return to her old home to take care of life. In her thoughts, the old woman reveals she only wants to live a few more years to witness with her own eyes the patriarch's triumphant return. The saint merely observes the old woman move away in silence, maintaining a serious look. Right after, she wraps herself in her purple aura and takes off at full speed, hoping internally that Zhao Mu does not pass away easily. Meanwhile, the scene transfers to the law enforcement hall. A subordinate demonstrates concern over the lack of news, but Senior Hanrong mocks, saying it is impossible for 3 grand demons at the nascent soul stage to fail against a mere foundation establishment stage cultivator. With a wicked smile, Hanrong imagines that by this time Zhao Mu must already be being tortured to the point of wishing for death itself. Except that reality in the cell is completely different. The frog demon is giving a back massage to our main character, asking if the pressure is good and if he needs help consolidating the realm. Seeing the scene, our protagonist gives an internal chuckle upon noting that the 3 demons surrendered completely to his authority. He warns the 3 that he will enter closed cultivation to stabilize his base and guarantees that as soon as he steps out, he will lead them to get revenge on Hanrong. Next, the young man lights hand seals and activates a protective magic array around himself. The 3 subordinates stand impressed on the outside, surprised to see that the boss masters even array formations despite being so young, concluding that the important thing is that he is awesome. Already isolated in the barrier, our hero analyzes the ancestral god blood amber obtained in the multiplication and wonders how powerful it really is. Upon absorbing a beam of energy from the item directly to his forehead, he is caught by surprise by the impact. The energy is so violent and fast that the young man realizes he will not manage to control and refine that alone. To contain that force in one place, our main character decides to use the 8th grade profound fire fruit as a catalyst. Without hesitating, he swallows the fire fruit in a single bite. A burning flame takes over his body, making the young man feel the scalding heat of the reaction. But the strategy works perfectly, and the blood amber's efficacy is finally contained and stabilized. Sitting in a trance and surrounded by golden flames, the protagonist focuses all his will to absorb that colossal energy. The result is unbelievable at absurd speed. He breaks successively through the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th levels of the core formation stage. Outside, the 3 demons watch open-mouthed, marveled at the new boss's instant advancement. And it does not stop there. The energy keeps rising and the young man breaks immediately to the 5th level of core formation. Impressed with such a demonstration of power, the 3 monsters bow in a sign of total respect and admiration. Ending the cultivation, our protagonist stands up with an imposing presence and comments that he still has not asked their names. The 3 introduce themselves quickly. The bear reveals his name as Shangxia, the boar says he is Du Zhao, and the frog identifies himself as Gui Ha. The young mercenary asks what was the reason for them having offended Han Rong to the point of being locked in that cell. Gui Ha explains that they were free cultivators in the 10,000 Demons Forest and founded the demon gang to explore ancient ruins and secret realms. He reveals they were imprisoned because Han Rong wanted to discover the location of an ancient ruin that was under their control. The fraud details that these ruins hide a secret lost treasure of the Phoenix clan, and that only the 3 brothers possess the spatial coordinates of the location. Hearing this, our main character gives a cunning smile, thinking that since the Phoenix clan resolved to act against him, he will not mind in the slightest stealing that treasure. To reward his new allies, he pulls out juicy pieces of grilled flood dragon meat and gifts them. The 3 demons devour the food with tears in their eyes from pure emotion, swearing they will face fire and water without hesitation for the incredible boss they found. Upon donating the dragon meat to his subordinates, the system notification confirms that the action activated the 1,000-fold multiplied reward, delivering 20,000 kilograms of flood dragon meat at the peak of the deity transformation stage to our main character, while he instructs the 3 to eat well to fully recover their strength. Wrapped in a devastating golden aura, the protagonist declares with determination that as soon as they recover all their energy, everyone will join together to destroy that dungeon and escape from there together.